Okay, as we get settled in here, I want to welcome each and every one of you to the February the 19th, 2024 Surry County Board of Commissioners meeting. And at this time, I would like to call the meeting to order. And happy all of you are here. Looks like we have attracted a pretty good crowd tonight. I'm sure we'll get down to business here in a little while, and hopefully everybody will go home. We'll all live to see another day by the grace of God. I'm sure it'll all work out just fine. But at this time, I am going to ask Commissioner Larry Johnson if he would be kind enough to lead us in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Heavenly Father, as we come to Thee in humble prayer this night, at the beginning of this Surry County Board of Commissioners meeting, we thank Thee, Father in heaven, for this opportunity to gather. We thank Thee for the laws of this land that requires us to meet often and to discern and decide, plan what's best for the citizens of Surry County. We're thankful for the leadership of the county. We're thankful for the staff and all of its employees. We're thankful for our freedom to choose, to vote, to make wise decisions. We're thankful for those that protect us here on this county, state, nation, and the world. We ask you to bless those that protect our freedom, protect us in our safety. Thank Thee for all those that are here this night for their various reasons for coming, and that they may that they will see the hand, the laws of the land, and the decision making made this night. We pray for this meeting, and we dedicate it unto Thee in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, folks, moving right along, and I would like to say welcome tonight, Howard Jones. Howard works for the county, owns a lot of our issues, and we're happy to have you. And I also want to say that Ed Wiltz is with us tonight, but he is joining by way of Zoom, and I guess our connection is up and running. He's good? All right. Hello, Ed. All right. You have all had a chance to look at your packet. And so I'm going to ask for someone to be kind enough to approve the agenda before us tonight. Looking for a motion.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Goins. Have a motion. Looking for a second. Commissioner Marion, any discussion? No discussion. Motion is, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Also in your packet, you will see the meeting minutes of February the 5th. And they are printed here before you. I'm sure you've read through them all. And I am looking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes of February the 5th. Looking for a motion, gentlemen.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion from Commissioner Mark Marion. Looking for a second.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Johnson. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor to approve the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
And the minutes are approved. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, and tonight we have a fairly lengthy consent agenda. It's all listed out here in the subtitles, but for full transparency and to know exactly what it is we have are about to consent to, I'm going to ask County Manager Chris Knopf to go over each and every one of the items in here, and I will ask you gentlemen or entertain your request to pull out any one or two or individual items and speak of those items before we consent. So if you want to do that, now is your time. If not, Chris, I'm going to ask for you to go over the consent agenda, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item are the tax department end of month summaries, charges, and reports. Next is an amendment to the 2024 board calendar. This will be to hold the May 6th meeting in Mount Airy. Next is a Duke Energy easement along property the county owns on Old Westfield Road. This is Pilot Middle School. The county actually owns this property due to debt service that's currently being paid. Next is an ambulance franchise renewal for Elkin Rescue Squad. They provide BLS services for Hugh Chatham Health. Next are position reclassifications in Health, Parks and Rec, and Human Resources. Next is the renewal of a property lease. This is for the Dockery Garage here in Dobson, Sheriff's Department uses. Next are the approval of closed session minutes from previous meetings. Next is the approval of partnerships for the running of the vines, which will take place this spring. Next is budget amendment number 7 submitted by the Finance Office. Next item is a grant execution agreement. This is on behalf of the Mount Airy Surry County Airport. And finally, the final item is to ask the board to reject all of the bids received for the Parks and Recreation Building at Fisher River Park, each one due to unresponsiveness. We need to allow those entities to resubmit.
Okay. I will ask on that one item, what do you mean unresponsiveness? How many bidders responded and how many did not? Come on up so the audience out in Cyberland can hear this.
One of the bidders was extremely high. One did not submit the proper documentation, and I forget what the third one was. Why it wasn't responsive.
Laura?
Denise, Laura, making reference. Yeah, there were no references.
Okay. All right. And gentlemen, any questions? Any comments? Any concerns? If not, I'm looking for a motion to pass the consent agenda as presented by County Manager Chris Knopf.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it is. Do I have a second? Second, I have a motion by Commissioner Harris, a second by Commissioner Goins. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. And the consent agenda has been approved unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, moving right along. Now's the time for our open forum section of the meeting. Open forum is a time when citizens have the opportunity to come before the board and to say about what's on your mind concerning hopefully county business. Most anything goes, as long as we stay within some reasonable boundaries. And I will remind you, tonight, we do have a rezoning item that is coming that I feel sure, looking at the crowd, has drawn in some of you folks. And I'll remind you, if your comments are going to be directed toward the rezoning, that if you will, hold that to a later time, and we will have a time in this meeting for to have you talk about that. We will have a public hearing, and you will be happily invited to make your comments at that time. But any other comments except involving the rezoning would be appropriate now. So if you have anything on your minds, any takers, please come up now. Yes, ma'am. And if you will, please come up, state your name and your phone number. Yes, ma'am. How you doing? All right.
Hello.
Hello, gentlemen. I'm Kellen Wilson Withers. My number is 336-401-0890. So, I was a foster parent for 3 years, back 8 years ago, ended up adopting my kids. And for the last 6 years, I have worked as I've worked as a youth minister for at-risk kids, mainly in the Flat Rock area. So I have dealt with the Department of Social Services, CPS, and foster care and adoption from almost every angle. And I've been really concerned about the lack of services that are being offered in Surry County. for years. But I finally called about a particularly difficult case to the state. And I said, what are we supposed to do? Who does the buck stop with when it comes to these services being offered? And they said, don't talk to us, talk to your county commissioners. So here I am, because I didn't know that this was our job. So anyway, I went and I spoke to Miss Irving, the new director that you hired, who is doing amazing things. And I asked her, what is it that is your biggest hurdle? And she said, we just don't have the people, which I already knew because I know a number of social workers along the years who have quit. I know what the intense turnover is. They have a very hard time in foster care and adoption and CPS keeping workers for more than a year, which means they train them, they put the resources into them, then they turn over, then they got to find new people. But it becomes an even bigger problem because they don't have enough. And so then they're overworked. And she said that she thinks that the thing that would help the most is if we could offer competitive salaries with our neighboring counties, which I was not aware was a problem. So I looked up my sweet little bar graph that I gave you. The references are on the bottom if that's something you want to check, but we are indeed paying less than all the surrounding counties. You'll see that Forsyth County is an outlier, understandably, but the ones close to us, we're not far behind Stokes, but we're still behind. We also don't have a great reputation for the last many years. Things are turning around, but we have to put a little extra effort into getting the social workers we need. And it's exceptionally important because they're overworked because there's not enough of them. Then they can't offer the services. Then they get piled upon. So, and then it's really hard for foster parents to work with a county that's not offering all of the services, and then we don't have enough foster parents. So I'm pleading with you to please seriously consider this salary issue for our CPS and Child Protective Services social workers, because right now CPS, I think, only has 1 or 2. Foster care is down by like 3 workers, and that's a serious liability problem. So that's what I'm here for.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Do you need me or can I leave now?
You are permitted to go.
All right. Well, you have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Thank you, Heather. All right. Anyone else for open forum? No takers? All right. At this time, we will close our section of the meeting for open forum. And with that next on the agenda, I will cordially invite up Sheriff, the Honorable High Sheriff Steve Hyatt. And Sheriff, you come along and feel free to bring anyone or no one, just have your way here. So go right ahead, Sheriff.
I may call on some of them here shortly, but good evening, Mr. Chairman and commission members. I appreciate the opportunity to present to you this evening. And we have a couple of matters on the agenda. And first one being the Detention Center Medical Care Services Request for Proposal, RFP. Denise has worked really hard to draft this document, and the chief deputy, the jail administrator, and myself have reviewed it. And I want to just express my gratitude to the county management, the finance, our health director, Samantha, and the sheriff's office staff. Our current contract with Southern Health Partners ends on June 30th. You all should have a copy of that RFP in your packet, I think. Okay. The RFP includes both required and suggested language as recommended by the county health director, Samantha. Once the RFP is approved, the proposal will be disseminated to all medical providers currently serving jails in North Carolina, as well as any other health provider upon request. Denise has recommended that a group consistent of members of the sheriff's office, the finance, and county management to review these proposals, and that the county health director review and approve the medical plan. I believe this RFP represents a positive step forward, and I hope for a unanimous agreement. Thank you for your consideration. If you have questions regarding this request document, I'd like to ask Denise to come forward. She can probably answer for sure any question better than I. Just in case, Denise, come on.
No, not to my knowledge.
How you? Hey Denise, how are you?
Good.
Gentlemen? I see you're still looking at your RFP and.
I read over the RFP and, I thought it all looked really good and, thank you Denise for putting this together. And, as far as that goes, I'd like to make a motion to go forward and, send out the RFP for the medical services.
Hey, gentlemen, I have a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can you would the commissioner, there's a couple of items in here I would like to discuss, well, one specifically. Or you can go ahead and call for a second and we'll have discussion and, I just may
All right.
have to.
In that order, I have a motion on the floor, Commissioner Mark Marion, to entertain the option of agreeing to the RFP. I'm looking for a second. Second by Commissioner Goins. Any discussion? Mr. Harris?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on page 3, down about 2/3 of the way down, it says the county encourages participation by small, minority, and women-owned businesses. Surry County reserves the right at its sole discretion to waive any informalities, to reject any and slash or all proposals, and to accept any proposal which in its opinion may be in the best interest of the county. Now, this county has never discriminated against anyone in my time here. And I bring this up in light of the DEI scourge that is flown across our nation. And I don't know that we don't need to be in the business of encouraging anyone to participate in these RFPs. It is a free country. We completely abide by all title civil rights law and the titles that are applicable to that, to encourage that anyone is not discriminated against this county. And I don't know that we ought to be in the business of doing this. This is, why would we encourage a specific gender or race or ethnicity to apply for this contract? It just flies in the face of common sense to me. We treat everyone equally, and the Supreme Court has recently ruled that affirmative action, which this smells like affirmative action to me in a veiled sort of sense, has ruled is unconstitutional. And I just don't think it ought to be in there. And I would like the county attorney to weigh in on this.
Are you saying you'd rather have it say we not only invite small, minority, and woman-owned businesses, but large, non-minority, any owned business, but we want to be inclusive to everyone, and we invite everyone and anyone that.
Well, it's a free country. Anyone, we don't need to be in business of encouraging, anyone can apply for this.
I'm playing the devil's advocate, and I tend to agree with you, Commissioner.
And I'm interested to hear what the county attorney has to say about it.
I think the language is surplus. I think it can be omitted without any problem.
Omitted and substituted with anything else?
No,
Counselor?
I think that the language of the request for proposal is clear, and it's seeking bids from qualified applicants, regardless of anything. So I don't disagree that it can be omitted.
Okay, thank you, sir. How do we admit it? We've got a motion and a second on the floor.
Can we get the original motion modified?
I will be glad to amend my motion and leave out the first sentence. Where's it at? I just lost it.
Page 3.
Or the whole, or the,
Participation by small, minority, and woman-owned businesses. I'll redo my motion to omit that sentence.
Commissioner Harris? satisfying to you?
Satisfies me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We have a motion that has been, we have a motion and it has been amended to say that we want to approve this RFP tonight with the omission of the section on page 3 that describes the folks and the parties that we will be encouraging to apply for this RFP proposal. And that will be eliminated the sentence that's A4 mentioned about the county encouraging participation by the minority and woman-owned businesses. I'm sure the intent is we want to encourage those and everyone else, hopefully, but not just those. So with that omission and with that motion, I'm
You,
looking
you
for a
may,
second.
you may need to reaffirm your second.
I did. It's Commissioner
Okay.
Goins, seconds again. Any more discussion? There being no more discussion, I'm looking for, you good, Mr. Johnson?
I can say thank you after we vote.
Okay. With any other discussion, questions? No more discussion, no more questions. Have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor of approving the request for proposals for the inmate medical services, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Sheriff, you want to continue? You have,
Yes, sir. I have to think. Thanks.
thank you, Denise.
Yes, our second matter on the agenda is regarding immediate temporary remedy for our officers working in the detention center. This matter has already been discussed previously in an open board meeting approximately a year ago, maybe. At that time, we recommended 20 or 21 additional employees, and as we anticipated, the opening of the new detention center. The board approved at that time 5 positions with the understanding that further staffing adjustments would be considered once we transition to the new facility. We successfully transferred all inmates to the new detention center on December the 16th. Sooner than expected, we have seen a significant increase in our inmate count since moving into the new facility. Prior to December move, we averaged 177 in-house. Since December 16th, we have averaged 247 inmates daily. We reached a one-day high or a period high of 279 inmates. Last week, we moved 27 inmates to the North Carolina Department of Corrections. Our count today is 259, 200 males and 59 females. Today, as another term of Superior Court begins, it would not be uncommon for the inmate count to start rising again. Additional staffing is crucial for the proper and safe operations of the detention center. Each shift is operating with the bare minimum required to meet state rules and sheriff's office policies. To comply with state and federal requirements, it is very important. One reason being liability concerns for me as the sheriff as well as for Surry County. All currently allotted detention positions are filled at this time. Tonight, I'm requesting 6 positions, 4 detention officers and 2 administrative assistant employees. This would be employees who would work the information center in the detention lobby. The 2 administrative assistant clerks would work during peak times, 7 days a week, most likely 9 A to 4:30 P if granted. Areas of the detention center needing additional officers are the upper tower, which is designed for 2 officers, and we only have 1 in there currently. The kitchen and laundry, no officer currently assigned. Need an officer assigned, particularly during day shift. Medical, we have no officer assigned as an escort. The current duty is being handled by officers assigned to housing. And then legal visitation, we have no escort officer. That duty is currently being handled by officers assigned to booking or housing. I'd like to ask our jail administrator, Randy Shelton, to come up and maybe explain some of those duties, if you have any questions, where we need additional help. Would please. Any questions on any of those things I mentioned? Sorry, sir. Just any questions for our jail administrator concerning
Gentlemen, any questions for jail administrator?
I have one for Lieutenant Shelton. In our past conversations, whether they were public or whatever, while the detention center was being built, somebody kind of remembered that really the state really didn't have no exact number that it was required. Is that a correct statement, or do they have something that we have to, guideline that we have to meet?
Concerning, inmate officer ratio or,
Well,
I'm not sure what.
The number of detention officers that we have, if for some reason I remember it being said that the state, really didn't have a certain exact number that we had to have for the detention center. Am I wrong in thinking I remember that?
Well, I'll answer first, but I mean, all the research I've done, it's up for opinion. I've looked and researched for several years now on that topic, and I think it's a wide range of things. I don't see where they do specifically say, but you may know
Well,
something different.
that was my concern, and then you said federal also, so I'm just, where's a
Oh.
certain number there that is required by the powers that have more control than we do.
Right. When I mentioned that, I'm sorry, I wasn't talking about the officer inmate ratio. I was just talking about guidelines that we have to abide by
Okay.
for our detention center.
So
Yeah.
the answer is, it's probably up to y'all's discretion, how many employees you have there at the detention center. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, we're up to y'all. But
Well,
yeah,
you.
Only thing I would add to that, there is in the general statutes on running the jail, that, officers assigned to security rounds has to be met, and we can't assign them any other duties that would keep them from doing their rounds. It's assigned by the state code.
And-
That's where the state jail inspector would do an assessment. Are we meeting those with staffing?
Well, also, Sheriff, this is your department. We don't tell you how to run your department.
Absolutely.
We,
I know.
we'll furnish the necessary means to such as that, but, I just, and also, I mean, how often do you have a lot of people coming into the lobby all the time? I mean, I have no idea.
Well, every time I've been down there since it's been built, there's been several people in there for various reasons, but you may have more.
Well, it's a busy, especially Superior Court Week, but daily it's busy because you got bondsman that comes through there. You got civilians that comes to bond people out or ask questions. So, and it's going to get even busier when the magistrates come in down there because they will come there to ask where to go to.
Was it any different than when you was in the prior jail? As far as, people coming in?
I'd say same amount. Obviously, it increases because our inmate population's increased.
Well, every time, I mean, not every, I don't know what went on over there, but all the times I were there, when gun permitting used to be required, that was what was causing the lobby to be full, but that is somewhat gone away and alleviated itself with the new General Assembly requirements, has it not, Sheriff? I mean, that's not something that clogs us up every day.
Yes, that's true. Now that's the sheriff's office lobby.
Yeah, Sheriff's Office lobby. Yeah.
I'm referring to the detention.
Yeah, but you referring to only the positions. I know these people will be working in the jail, but they would be exclusively working at the jail, not
Yeah,
clerical anywhere else.
correct.
If I'd add this, there's another part to the jail we've not opened up yet. That they would be responsible for, and that's public visitation to inmates. And we've not opened that because we don't have staffing to do it. But that's where they'll go sit in front of a monitor, and the inmate in the housing area will sit in front of a monitor and they can do their visitation.
All right, gentlemen, any other, jump in, Commissioner Harris?
Yes, could you remind me again what that staff inmate ratio is that is required at a minimum by the state of North Carolina?
There is no problem.
There is no requirement.
Not where it states X amount of inmates versus how many officers have.
In this document here on the cover sheet, it says that each shift is operating with the bare minimum required to meet state rules and sheriff's office policies affecting routine rounds and checks, required to meet state rules, bare minimum? What does that mean, sir?
The requirement of the rounds.
Okay, so there is no prisoner staff ratio. I was always under the understanding that you all had told us once upon a time there was a certain number that of inmates to staff ratio.
We have to give y'all numbers from other jails, what the ratio was. There is no state or federal standard that.
So when you say each shift is operating with the bare minimum required to meet state rules and sheriff's office policies, you're not necessarily, you're talking about the number of rounds that has to be completed, not the number of individuals required by the state to be there?
Right, we have to meet those 2 rounds per hour. And then if there's special watches, which is 15 minutes, they have to be met within that time period, or we violate the statute.
So what you're saying is you don't have enough people now per shift to make that many rounds. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
With all their other duties.
Yeah.
Commissioner Goins?
I guess so you're asking for, actually gonna ask for nine new positions, except the administrative assistants. We're looking for 9 more detention officers. Is that correct?
Well, 4.
4 now and five additional in a new budget year.
Well, that's possible. Yeah, we haven't met on that yet, but
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess for me, I'd like to see what that cost is, what that's gonna look like, cost wise. And maybe could we carve out a little time at retreat to talk about the cost and what it's gonna cost the taxpayers, for those positions?
Yeah, it does say, we read this to say you're asking for 4 detention officers immediately and 2 clerical workers. That's like right now.
yes.
And then in the next paragraph, it says you do request to ask for 5 additional detention officers in the next 24-25 year, which would be as early as July the 1st. So I think what Commissioner Goins is saying is this letter indicates you're about to ask us tonight and in a few weeks for the total of 9 detention officers. Is that where we think we're needing to go here?
Yes.
And 2 clerical workers, which would be about 11 new people added to the jail personnel.
Right.
Yeah. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I'm just, from that point, somebody's got to pay for this, obviously. We know you guys, we're kind of at your mercy. I don't know anything about running the jail. Do you guys know anything about running the jail?
I just know I want to stay out of it.
That's right. So, if you say you need 5, or if you need 8, or if you need 15, or if you need 23, or if you need 23 more next month, I guess we're kind of at your mercy and in a trusting relationship that we have. We just, we're just trying to get to where you think you're going. And it looks like you're going to go for 9 detention officers and 2 clerical workers, which is a total of 11 people between now and when we pass the budget for the next fiscal year. So with that, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but just an average figure, I'm going to ask our manager and or assistant manager and personnel director, Sandra Snow, if you just had to give a round figure as to an average salary, if you talked about detention staff and those 2 clerical workers, about how much apiece would it cost the good citizens of Surry County to add 11 people to the jail in 1 year?
If you could come to the microphone so that.
Yeah,
you
come
can
on up.
hear it.
So, focus.
Yeah, I talked to Chief Lowe this afternoon, and we discussed the numbers and discussed the current budget. So around 49,000 for each detention officer.
So assuming between now and sometime before the next calendar year is over, we're talking about 9 times, what'd you say? 49 cents. Let's just
Mhm.
round it off. I can't do math that good. That's about 450. Okay.
The grand total for the 4 positions, the 4 officers and 2 clerical is,
I thought it
Less
was
than that?
5 officers.
well, this has changed it to 4 on here. Is it 4 now or is it 5?
4 officers.
4
right now.
officers currently, and then we were going to address the other later in the year, so.
Okay. right at 280,000 for the current
That's for the
request.
immediate request of 4 detention officers and 2 clerical workers.
Yes,
So immediately that would cost us for this 1 year salary, 6 times 50,000, $300,000 a year. Is that about what you would say that would cost the county?
yes, sir.
And that's not counting the mention of 5 more that you might want to ask for in the next fiscal year, which could be as early as July the 1st, which would be 5 times 50 more, which would be 250,000. So we're talking about a minimum of $550,000, which it would cost the county each year, starting right now and every year thereafter or more, as these salaries were probably destined to go up. So I think that's what the board is trying to wrap its head around, Sheriff, not trying to say you're asking for 11 tonight, but you're asking for 6 tonight. And you've mentioned you want to ask for 5 for the next year, and we're already in budget year discussions for this next year. So I think we're trying to wrap our head around about how much money that would cost as an annual increase in the jail. And I think we finally come to
So,
600,000 plus.
okay, so it's 600 plus?
Yeah, for those total 11 now.
Okay, for the 11.
Sheriff, while we're talking about the salaries and how much it's gonna cost taxpayers,
Yes, sir.
could you or, Jail Administrator Shelton explain the misdemeanor confinement program?
Yes, I was going to do that in a few minutes, but Chief Lloyd was going to do that. So we do have some,
All right, he can,
Revenue
he
resource.
can hold a minute. Any more discussion or questions? Commissioner Goins,
Mr. Johnson?
Commissioner Johnson?
Lieutenant Shelton, these detention officers now, each shift, you have 2 officers to go around every hour? Is that what you're saying?
Every dorm has to be checked twice an hour.
Every dorm that has somebody in it has to be
Even
checked.
if it's not an inmate in it, we have to do around it.
Every dorm has to be checked, 2 times an hour.
Right. Now, there's 2 small dorms where we put special housing in. Those inmates, some of them has 15-minute watches, so that's 4 rounds an hour.
How many detention officers does it take to go around the whole jail? Can 2 do it all? Can
No.
2 people do it all?
No, sir.
Oh, all right. Tell me how many does it take to do that, just to do that one job? That's your top priority, is that correct? Being it's mandated, you do other things when you can. Is this a top priority, going to these, being it's a mandated thing by the
Absolutely.
state?
Number 1 priority,
How many detention officers has to do that every day, every shift?
at least 5.
At least 5. And how many do you have now?
4 if we got a good day. Sometimes 5, but 4 if it's
4 if nobody's out sick,
or
nobody's in
vacation
training or on vacation.
or at the hospital.
What do you do now to make that happen? Just pull somebody from somewhere else? Yes.
Yes.
Anywhere we can find.
So if you had one more, you would, every day, if you had 5 people there, they could do it.
Yes,
6 could do it better.
absolutely.
Yes.
And if you got 4 now, you would have 4 already sometimes, and then 5 sometimes, so you'd have 8 or 9. So if 6 could do it a lot better, then 7 could do it a lot better, 8 could do it a lot better. I'm saying 9 should be able to do it really good. Would these other detention officers you're talking about, Sheriff, be for this also?
like for the future, the other 5.
Yes, yes.
Well, there's some other things that we'd like to implement, a lot of other programs such as the trash pickup, mental health, substance abuse classes, and that takes people. We have to have escorts. We have to have an officer with these people. And so that was what I was going to speak to you about, later in the month, about the other 5. Wasn't prepared really tonight to do that, but yeah, that's what the other 5 would be, to implement a lot of programs that we haven't been able to do it because of space.
Yeah, I understand. We certainly, and I promise you, we weren't trying to put you on the spot here, but you just, in your same presentation, it talked about 6 now, and then it talks about 5 in the near future, and we're already in the near future because we're already talking about the July budget. So I think our minds kind of jumped
Yeah,
to there,
absolutely.
and it's eventually going to be 11 that you're asking for. Commissioner Marion, any other comments?
Yeah, when we're talking about the costing taxpayer money for all these positions they're asking for, there is a program that he said he was going to discuss and talk about the misdemeanor confinement, and that would alleviate a lot of the cost to the taxpayer. And that's what I asked for them to do.
Yeah. Go ahead, Commissioner Harris.
Yeah, in the same vein that we were on here a minute ago on the positions. I'm assuming that this jail is a lot safer to operate than the old jail. Is that a fair assumption?
Safer,
Safer for your officers?
if fully staffed, yes.
Even not fully staffed, is this jail safer than the old jail?
You know, yeah, you know,
Okay, all right. Is it a fair assumption to say that this jail is, takes with its configuration, which is ultra modern, the very best that there is available in incarcerating inmates in the state of North Carolina? Does it take less staff than an antiquated facility, given the same exact number of inmates? If we had 250 inmates at the old jail and we had 250 inmates at the new jail, in your opinion, would it take the same amount of staff to staff one over the other one? Or could you staff the new jail with less people than you could the old jail, given the same number of inmates?
if it's apples to apples, maybe. But one thing in the old jail we never had is classification process, which is state and federal mandated because of the overcrowding. That means we gotta utilize all the dorms to spread out and do classification, which takes more staff. I mean, if we went in and bunched everybody up and not do a classification, I can actually run it with less people, but we're not meeting state and federal laws when we do that.
If you got all the positions that you are requesting, would you feel comfortable telling the Surry County taxpayers that you're running that jail just as efficient and at the best cost and the safest that you could for the utilization of the taxpayers' dollars that you're requesting? In other words, do you feel like that the taxpayers are being fairly represented in this request?
Absolutely. Because the request is to meet state standards.
But you said there are no state standards.
The 2 rounds per hour.
Well,
In utilizing the safety and security of the building, then it takes this staffing, just like the camera systems we have in place now. They need to be monitored.
mhm,
And that's a safety for inmates and officers.
okay. The positions that you describe up front, and I forget how staffing, let's see, wait a minute, the 2 additional positions, what do you call those? Clerical. So those are not sworn people. Those could be anybody. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And there's 2 of them. Is that correct? Yeah.
2 in the request, yes.
And, are any of the people up at the old jail up front, are any of them coming down to the new jail?
We've never had any of them.
Well, when I go in the front door there, there's people everywhere, all kinds of clerical people in there. I don't,
Oh, the sheriff's
That's
office.
the sheriff's office.
I
Well-
guess your question is.
well, it's the same building. It's the same.
Those-
No, okay, so in the basement, you don't have anybody there. Okay. So if someone's coming to visit an inmate, now they go in the old jail in the bottom and, no, what do they do?
No, we got a lobby in the new jail.
I'm talking about the old jail. It's,
There's nothing there, no inmates.
so you can't visit a prisoner in the old jail.
No, sir.
There is no
There's no prisoners there.
I understand that, but I'm talking about before they were moved. Before they were moved, was someone able to come there and visit a prisoner?
Prior to
Prior to
COVID, yes.
yeah.
Once COVID hit, we've not visited since COVID.
Okay. All right. but prior to COVID, when the old jail was operating and full of prisoners, was there clerical people
No, sir.
in the bottom?
They would pick up a phone.
They'd pick up a phone. I didn't know if it was a bell or a phone or what it was. I knew there was something.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Then a person from booking would have to come out and handle.
Understand. Yes, sir. Okay. And the people in the top part of the sheriff's office now, are any of them going down to the jail to work? That clerical staff that's up there, no?
Those are the ones I'm referring to that used to give out the permits and stuff. Have you utilized those folks at the new jail? Or are they still at the old sheriff's office? I mean, at your current sheriff's office? Do you even have clerical there at the sheriff's office?
Yes, they're still at the sheriff's office.
But you're not able to incorporate any of those into either of these two positions at the jail?
No.
And remind me again, and this is kind of an outlier, this question here. Remind me again, I know we have a lot of school resource officers in Surry County. Remind me again what these people do in the summer. The school resource officers, what do they do in the summer? 10 weeks?
Well, various things. They do their in-service training during that time. They take their family vacations during that time.
Yeah.
And if, sometimes they will be assigned to another division. If, generally it's not patrol, is it? It's usually,
We, they work at, we assign them to, Camp Raven
Boy
Knob,
Scout camp, yeah.
and, they, about four of them do, driver's ed classes for the school system during, yeah, there is very little downtime.
Okay.
I will admit, I've had the same concern back when we first took office, but after review,
Yeah.
very little downtime.
All right.
Most of the SROs don't take any days off during the year, so they are able to take their vacation.
Yeah.
All their training that the 36 hours that they're required, they'll get that took care of during the summer, and which ends up being a real short break.
Well, and I asked that question in the context of I want to make sure that our personnel are being utilized properly. And I know you folks do a great job, and that's fine. I just wanted to ask that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm done.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Before Commissioner Marion's concerned, I want to share one experience I've had there at the new detention center.
Okay, go right ahead.
After they moved in, I went down, of course, naturally unannounced, and I walked in, nobody's in the lobby, nobody. Well, of course, I go use the restroom, I come back out, and a citizen comes in, and he would love to see, I think it was Lieutenant Jenkins, he was there to see him. I think you have a telephone, and I was there, I know the citizen, so we talked a little bit. I think it took probably close to 10 minutes before somebody responded up to the window. The citizen was getting a little perturbed, because I think he was expected, but they didn't know he was there. And so I want to go to vouch that I feel like somebody needs to be a little quicker on the draw to receive any citizen coming in to the, so I would certainly see a need for some type of personnel there, or at least if they're not there at the window, be a whole lot closer by. And such as that. I do want to share that with you, because if I was that citizen, I would probably, got a little itchy too. So why in the world? Yeah, but new jail, but we ain't got nobody to answer our needs. So I would like to say that. And I don't know, I know we're going to hear what Chief Deputy Lowe has to
I'm gonna
say.
let him talk, and then we'll come back and we'll
Okay.
have some suggestions from the board. Chief Deputy Lowe, I know you're gonna talk about state misdemeanor program along with some other things.
Just real briefly, of course, this is, we've always been involved in the state program. COVID hit, we had 10 beds reserved with the state. We was not able to utilize any of those beds. So since then, we haven't had any. When we started in December 17th, when we moved, we had 10 beds reserved with the state. We have since, as of today, we've asked them to up that to 30. Just since December 17th or just in the month of January, we have received $13,592 in that program. Of course, we haven't got paid for January yet. That was just from the 17th until the end of the month. Our projection is starting to actually, that'd been yesterday when
Today's.
yeah, we should be receiving $1,040 a day for each inmate that we have up to 30. Right now, we have 26 total that's in the misdemeanor confinement program. If we stay on that path, you're looking at $30,160 a month, which for a year would be $361,920. So, the $362,000 should be a good average of the revenue that these positions could.
Tell us again,
create.
just for general public consumption here and for my, this board's, reminder to this board, tell us what the state misdemeanor program is in a nutshell. It's my understanding, it is not a felony conviction.
Correct.
It's the same all over the state of North Carolina. They are incarcerated because of anything it could be lots of things, but not a felony. And they are the only people that are qualified to serve as inmates on a inmate litter program, correct? It can only be state misdemeanors. It cannot be people that's committed felonies. Is that correct?
If we're in the program.
Yes, that is correct. If we're in that litter program, yes.
Okay, and do you plan to, if you say you got 30 beds designated for these, so right now, if we implemented the litter program by your inmates, we wouldn't have enough people to probably pick up litter. But you're saying if we put out the information to other counties, hey, we got beds here that we're getting paid for. If you've got misdemeanor confinement inmates, we're accepting them now. Do you feel like you would be getting some from other counties? Or do you feel like you'd have enough locked up and incarcerated from our court system here?
My understanding, they're begging for beds right now. So yeah, we have quickly went from 10 from zero to we have 26 as of today that we're getting the $40 a day just for the misdemeanor confinement. Now, if we was able to, we had the staffing, as you know, to do the program, the litter program, then that ups that to $60 a day.
Yeah. And are these 26, were they convicted in Surry County, Stokes County, and 17B district, or are they from all over the state?
Both.
So
In
what,
county
half and
and
half
out.
maybe?
So we probably got 5 or 6 that's out of county,
5 or 6 is out
like
there.
from Ash or Allegheny.
I understand. All right. Anything else to add, Chief Lowe?
No, sir. Just wanted to know the.
Sheriff, Honorable Sheriff? Anything?
No, I just want to make one more comment there. In closing, I just like to say, working as a detention officer is a tough job. Every day working in a setting where 250 incarcerated people, offenders are being housed, it can be dangerous. It can be stressful and it can be emotionally exhausting. In all probability, there's not many Surry County employees that want to be working every day behind locked doors. And so I just want you to strongly consider my request. And thank you so much for letting me present tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Lowe, and thank you, Jail
Commissioner.
Administrator.
I've
Yeah,
got-
whoa,
Mr.
whoa,
Chairman.
whoa, whoa.
Got a comment before they take
All
off.
All right.
These detention officers have put their life at risk all these several last years that we've been overcrowded in that jail. And we finally got them in the new detention center. They went from a 110-person facility to a 360-person facility. And if you've ever walked through it, it's humongous. It's a monstrosity compared to the old jail. And I don't see you going from 110 where you sometime averaged 170 I have heard 200, which is 200 or more, which is very detrimental to the inmates and the detention officers' health and livelihood. And, you know, it is safer down there now because they're spread out. But it's a huge facility, and they're talking about making rounds, and you've got to make eye contact with these inmates twice an hour. Takes a while to do that. So I understand why you need more people. And I heard you say that people, the inmates that are doing the laundry don't have anybody watching over them. The ones cooking or serving don't have anybody watching them. That's dangerous. So I just, I appreciate the job that y'all do, and I know the citizens of Surry County appreciate what you do. And that's all my only concerns is, I think you need what you think you need. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Commissioner Marion. Commissioner Goins.
Yeah, I appreciate what our detention officers do. I do have some questions, and I think for me to chew on this just a little bit, I think it's something we can make a decision on next week at retreat if we need them now. I do have some things I need to think about and want to ask some questions about. And so that's where I'm at tonight.
All right. In the essence of time, Commissioner Harris, you want to jump in again?
Yes, Larry Lowe mentioned that 30,000 a month on those misdemeanor confinements, $361,000 a year. From a cost comparative analysis, I know that's revenue. I'm assuming that's revenue you're referring to. My question would be, what are the actual cost numbers to Surry County, which, you know, you could refer to as profit? How much are the actual realization of income or revenue for Surry County would it be? Because obviously there's a cost factor involved to feeding and housing and taking care of these inmates. And I'm assuming your number was a revenue number. And you get that to me later, Larry, if you'd like. No worries. One question for the sheriff, since he's here. Sam Page is a big proponent of inmates picking up trash on the highways. Sam Page is probably the biggest proponent of picking up trash by inmates that there is in the state of North Carolina. And I know you're a big Sam Page fan. And I know Sam Page was here in the county a few days ago because you called me and kindly invited me to that. And I'm very sorry I wasn't able to come. I was busy. But did you happen to talk to Sam Page about inmates picking up litter while he was here?
I did not.
Okay.
No.
All right.
I have before.
Okay. All right.
I, Commissioner, did have talked to Sam Page. I talked to him the other day at the meeting and sometime afterward. He is a big proponent of it. He says it's one of the most wonderful things that the Sheriff's Department in Rockingham County has done is start the inmate litter program. And, you know, we talked about it, then COVID came along, and now we've moved into a new jail, and now we got shortages of personnel, and we filled that up. Now we've got realized some more issues there where we need some more personnel. I'll just say again, on top of that, we're still very interested in a litter program conducted by you, the sheriff, and the inmates. And I think it will be a wonderful thing for the county. I'll tell this again, we've talked, I think there's about 24 counties that's involved in it. According to the North Carolina Sheriff's Association, they say nothing but glowing remarks about it. There's never been incidents where there's been any suits that were successful in any type of liability toward the sheriff's departments that are conducting this. And certainly we'll have this discussion about what we're going to do with these extra personnel. But I too want to agree that we still have that on our minds, and we're still looking forward to the day when we can go down the road and it's a Surry County Sheriff's Department inmate litter program, and they're on the sides of the road working, and I'm sure they're just as happy as we are to get out of jail and pick up garbage. So keep that in mind. Commissioner Goins, you're suggesting that we kick this can down the road and take it up at the retreat in 2 weeks. Taking the consensus, gentlemen, Commissioner Johnson,
Next week.
next week.
At the retreat.
Yes,
We're saying we're
that's
gonna-
what he
we're gonna make a
suggested.
Call at the retreat. Is that what you're saying?
That's what he's suggesting.
I like that.
Okay, Commissioner Harris.
I'm good with that. Haste makes waste.
Okay, Commissioner Marion.
With that.
All right, I'm good with that, and so we shall take it up next week. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. All right,
All right, thank you.
appreciate what you do. All right. Whew. Seems like we need a break, but I guess we'll pursue on if that's the pleasure of the board here, gentlemen. Okay, next on the agenda, I am going to, call up, Marty Needham, Development Services Director. And, Howard Jones, you're here on behalf of the, planning director and the planning board, and you've been involved in the rezoning, overseeing that from a legal standpoint, that first took up the issue of Red Oak development. And, so I'm gonna let you guys, say what we're here for. I have just a very quick, opening remark, and then I will call the meeting into a public hearing.
Okay. Evening, Commissioners. This is case ZCR 1235. The applicant is Jason Tate, representing Red Oak Development. The proposal is a request for conditional rezoning for 2 parcels and a portion of a 3rd parcel totaling 10.66 acres. Current zoning on the property is both CB and RA. The proposed zoning is HBC, Highway Business Conditional. The properties are in an open area of low to medium residential density, along with rural business and highway business zone properties within close proximity. Properties have direct road frontage on Old Highway 601. The staff communicated via phone and in person with the applicant in October and November of 2023. Highway Business Conditional was requested by the applicant. The properties are not zoned to accommodate the carport business, and several structures do not meet current building setback requirements. At December's planning board meeting, the community came out and voiced their concerns about the property and existing traffic conditions. The applicant has submitted a site plan that asks for rezoning of the entirety of all 3 parcels to HBC. After much discussion, it was suggested that the applicant and community meet to try and come up with a mutually beneficial solution. The applicant asked to table the planning board's decision until such meeting could be had and a revised site plan could be produced. The applicant and community members met on February 6th, I am told, but no clear resolution was attained. So the matter came back before the planning board on February 12th. After a lengthy hearing, the planning board voted and made a recommendation to deny the partition for rezoning, finding that the request is inconsistent with the Surry County Land Use Plan 2040 and is not reasonable and is not in the public's interest. The request is not consistent with zoning and use of the surrounding area. It is not compatible with the rural nature and agriculture and residential use of the area. And the requested uses will not be compatible with the surrounding community. There was also a variance hearing on the setback requirements that was withdrawn due to the planning board's decision to deny the request. Staff will present facts and answer any questions the more we have, but first, the petitioner has submitted right before the hearing a new site plan. I will turn this portion over to Development Services Attorney, Mr. Jones, and County Attorney, Mr. Waltz, to the impact of that site plan legally.
All right, Mr. Jones, please.
If it pleases the board, just stepping back a moment, the conditional rezoning, just to set the stage, is based upon a site plan. So in our normal rezoning, we have a list of uses and we're not even allowed to consider what the applicant says they're going to use the property for. This is wholly different, 100% different. Everything here is contingent upon that site plan, which sets out the uses that are allowed and sets out the buildings, the access, the buffers, setbacks, it sets out everything. And that controls moving forward if it is approved. As Director Needham said, there we had our planning board meeting originally in November. That was tabled. Issues were raised by the community, and there was a question whether or not some of those issues could get resolved if the parties met. Parties did meet. There was a reviewed site plan submitted. That second site plan is what's in your packet. Okay? That site plan is what the planning board met this February and reviewed, and after a lengthy hearing, determined that they recommended to this body that the petition to rezone be denied. And they filled out their lengthy questions that we mandate that they answer. There's a 4 or 5 page document in your agenda package. It says that each of the questions they were required to answer by our ordinance and by 160D. And then they also made their findings that it was not consistent with the Surry County Land Use Plan 2040 and that it was not reasonable and was not in the public interest. Now, that finding is not binding on this board. The board has to look at it and consider it, but it doesn't have to follow it. In addition to that, there was also a request for a variance. There are a number of buildings on this property that do not meet setbacks and will not be able to meet HB setbacks. If the board reached a consensus tonight to approve this rezoning, okay, then the setbacks and the buildings and the layout with regard to property lines do not meet current Surry County ordinances. The variance was withdrawn. Where does that leave us? If the board reaches a consensus and would want to approve this, then under section 154.006 6-16A3 of our development ordinance, this board may approve the site plan with setbacks that are not consistent with the general ordinances with our ordinances for HB, but you must expressly say that you are doing so with the direction that those normal standards won't apply to this property and that the buildings as set forth on this site plans with the normally deficient setbacks will be okay. You're allowed to do that, okay, which is similar to a variance, but it's a legislative decision by this body. But if you do it, the law requires that you say in public in front of Andrew that yes, and direct Andrew to put in the minutes that we're not going to hold the applicant to those standards. The standards that are set forth here, some of the setbacks are off by however many feet. You would need to say, we're granting the rezoning and we're also saying that those setbacks requirements that don't meet the normal HB will control. Does that make sense? That's an extra step you would have to take. And of course, then there would be no application for a variance. The problem with moving forward with the variance, if this board reaches a consensus to approve this site plan, but doesn't address the setbacks, you've amended the map, but you haven't dealt with the setbacks. So you have to do that tonight if you'd reach a consensus to go that way and approve the rezoning request. Now, if you get to that point, I would suggest that you ask Marty to just summarize for you those areas that would need to be dealt with, which pieces of which buildings the setbacks would be relaxed. Now, of course, you would also need to make a consistency and reasonableness finding and a finding that is in the public interest of the citizens of Surry County. And that's a written finding. You've done that before. There's a sample in your packet, and it is set out. It is or is not, and you'll circle one, and then you'll make whatever findings. And as we've talked about before, can do that all in one whack. The Commissioner Marion is the one that pointed that out when we originally dealt with this, much to my chagrin. And he was right. So we have a combined finding here for consistency with the Land Use Plan 2040 and also reasonableness and in the public interest. But you have to do that, and you have to say why. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It can be one sentence. So that is another matter that will have to be dealt with. Now, there's another wrinkle here tonight. And again, I'm not concerned with the decision. That is your decision, whether or not to approve or disapprove this. I'm concerned with process. That's all I'm concerned with, in that we follow the ordinance and 160D that the legislature set out. As I said, there was an original site plan that was reviewed by the planning board back in November. There was discussion. It would be good for us to, not us, but the neighbors and community members and the applicant to sit down and talk and think about revising it. That was done. That was site plan number 2. This evening, I received site plan number 3, okay, which is right here. Now, this site plan, I'm not versed at reading site plans, and I'm not the planning board. So I can't offer any opinion as to whether or not what it does or doesn't do, but the applicant will explain that the applicant thinks it addresses a core issue with this, which is adding another access. I don't know if that is what the planning board would find, or if that would be Director Needham's opinion. However, here's the problem. Tonight's meeting has been publicly noticed and advertised with regard to the second site plan. We reran our notices for that second hearing. In addition, the planning board hasn't had an opportunity to look at this site plan number 3, and we have a planning board for a reason. This is what they do, and you're required to have that review under 160D in our ordinance. So, Ed and I have both reviewed the ordinances independently, and then we met together. And our opinion that we had conveyed to the county manager and Director Needham is that, number 1, under 154.009F, an applicant can withdraw their petition at any time until a vote is taken. That's what our ordinance says. It says at any time you can withdraw your application. Well, that doesn't solve the problem, does it? A resubmittal would solve the problem. Another petition. Well, there's a wrinkle with that.
Another petition with the current plat attached.
With the new plat.
Right.
With plat number 3. In order to get it back before the planning board, if the board wants to go down the road of considering this plat number 3, it needs to go to the planning board first. And Ed and I agree that the way that would need to be done would be a withdrawal and a resubmittal. The problem with that is, although you can always withdraw your application, that is for site plan number 2, you can't resubmit, or you can't have more than one zoning petition in a 12-month period for a piece of property. You just can't do it. And that's under Section E. Unless there's an exception. I know it's complicated, but this is the last wrinkle. Unless this board votes by an 80% of its actual composition. You're composed of five members. You have to have 4/5 vote to allow an exception. That is a shorter period of time for the applicant to resubmit than 1 year. And you have to find it's a hardship or that there's an emergency. Either there's a hardship or an emergency. So, I'm sorry for that long discussion, but we have a third site plan here. No one else in the room has seen this site plan. The citizens.
It's not part of the public notice.
Right, it's not part of the public notice. And it may be great, it may not. I don't know. I'm not the planning board. And in order to get it from the planning board, we'd have to start over. And the way you start over is to withdraw and resubmit. But you gotta wait a year unless this board by that vote says that the applicant can do it in a month or 2 months or immediately. So that is something that is in the discretion of the board. And normally that would be handled by the applicant making a written request to the board as with any other matter and it going on the agenda.
At a later meeting.
At a later meeting. So if this board, if we want to go down that road, that brings up an issue of timing. Because the last thing the board will need to consider tonight, unless the board approves the the site plan that's in front of it tonight, the second one, okay, that was in your package. Right, unless you approve that tonight, if you either vote or reach a consensus to deny this petition, or if the petitioner withdraws the petition, you're going to have to confront one more issue, and that is timing. There are currently people using that property. So this has been a large topic of interest for the community, and in the interest, number one, the interest of transparency for the members of the community to know what happens going forward if there is a denial of the petition, okay, then what happens tomorrow morning with regard to that use that's out there? Okay. How soon does the use have to leave? In other words, if it is withdrawn, what happens? So I think the board needs to be transparent and actually confront that if it reaches a consensus to deny it, or if the petitioner withdraws the current plat and wants to go back. What happens during that interim? The other
It's
important
likely to
point
be the
is-
same outcome.
Yes. And that's necessary not just for transparency, but it's necessary for the property owner and for the current tenant, 5-star, to know what will happen tomorrow morning. So I think the board needs to at least express a direction to the county officers. What are you doing the day after? And that everyone needs to know when they leave here tonight, what's going to happen tomorrow morning. That's all I wanted to say. And that is, we're here tonight about the site plan that's in your packet. If we're not going to discuss that, and if this is withdrawn, then there is no reason to have any public testimony because it's gone, okay? Because there is no longer a petition. But any discussion tonight and any consideration by this board as to whether or not to grant it is going to have to be limited to what everyone in the community has already seen, which is the second site plan, the one that's in your packet.
And what was publicly advertised.
Exactly. Now, Ed would like to talk, Ed, I'd like to turn this over to Ed with regard to the discussion of timing so he can flesh that out a little bit, if it would please the board.
Go right ahead.
My opinion is that, and I haven't seen the site plan that was submitted tonight. It may be great. But I hadn't seen it, planning board hadn't seen it. And my opinion is that you, as the Board of Commissioners, would like a recommendation from the planning board on what direction to take. And so that leaves us with either we vote on what's in the package, up or down. Mr. Tate withdraws the application, but in any event, for the new site plan to be under consideration, I think it just has to go back before the planning board.
All right. Anything else, Ed?
Not yet.
I think I need a headache powder.
I don't understand all I know about this.
It looks like to me, if, I may be wrong here, so Howard, help me out. You're here, Ed, help me out. The petition we have tonight in our packet that's been publicly noted is for this board's charge to be to vote the rezoning request and grant it, or to deny it.
Correct.
All these other things about somebody may withdraw, somebody may come up with a new plan that you, at your both suggestions, need to go back to the planning board.
But don't they have to withdraw it before we vote?
No, we can vote on this before us tonight, or or there have to be some kind of withdrawal. You seem to be suggesting there might be. I don't know how it's appropriate to determine that.
That's correct. Mr. Tate could withdraw the application anytime before you vote. But once you vote, it's either up or down, and that's it. The other issue, if it's withdrawn or denied, then upon application from Mr. Tate, the board would need to address whether they're going to waive the exception of one application per year. And, depending on how things work, if this thing wound itself back to the planning board and the planning board recommended that the Board of Commissioners consider the exception because the plan is so good or whatever, that'll be another decision for another day. But the application for the exception, I think, needs to be in writing, and it needs to have planning board backing. I mean, just my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Sure, please.
So, Mr. Waltz, all of that is assuming that we as a board are going or potentially would look favorably at a rezoning request under a new site plan. I mean,
Well, that's correct, Mr. Harris.
If there's three votes on this board against rezoning, it would almost be a moot point to even send it back to the planning board because all of that would be irrelevant. Is that?
Well, if the rezoning is denied or if the application is withdrawn, then the way I see it, there is a possibility of a reapplication based on the new plat that, I would recommend that the planning board weigh in on whether they are in favor of it or not, but it's ultimately up to you whether the Board of Commissioners grants an exception to the one application per year rule that's set out in the
Well, I
ordinance.
thought we determined, Ed, I'm sorry, that we would not be compelled to go down that road tonight without
No, you don't need to
getting
go
on the
down that
agenda
road.
and that coming before another meeting at a later date.
That's
I mean, it could
exactly
be
right.
much sooner, but it doesn't, I'm not prepared to deal with that tonight.
No, I wouldn't recommend it, but that's in the greater scheme of things, that's the way it works. It
Yeah,
may be
understood.
several meetings down the road. And you got to factor in The planning board only meets once a month. Y'all meet twice a month. So it's, it's not going to be a quick decision, in my opinion. And another factor, regardless of whether y'all vote tonight on this and there's a public hearing or whether the application is withdrawn, what does Five Star do?
In the interim.
In the interim, yeah, it's like, I mean, I guess you could tell them to, if it's denied or the application is withdrawn, you could tell them to move out tomorrow, but that's just not reasonable or practical. So I think that part of your decision-making process needs to be, what is a reasonable time for operations to cease? Because operations are currently illegal. And of course, if the request is approved, that's a moot point. But if it's not approved or the application is withdrawn, what's fair to allow them to remove their stuff?
Yes. Well,
Yeah, and if I could,
yes, Mr. Jones.
so yes.
Please.
The whole point is, we have a third site plan here. And Ed and I are both of the opinion that it can't be considered by this board at this hearing. And there are procedures to get it before the board, but not during this hearing. So that's our only point of all that. It's
Yep.
notice to everyone here, including the petitioner. You can withdraw your application and resubmit, and you can apply for a shorter time period. But unless that happens, this third petition won't be ever considered by this board.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask the attorney a question?
Yes, go right ahead.
So am I getting this correct here? To consider that, the chairman is going to have to, without taking a formal vote, he's going to have to take an informal consensus of this board to find out which way we're leaning on the current reason. No? Okay.
The applicant controls, the applicant has a right, an unqualified right to withdraw the application. If the applicant withdraws the application, and if at some future time, this board votes to grant the applicant an exception to reduce the 1-year period, and then the applicant files a new petition for rezoning, attaching that new site plan, then it can come before the board.
Okay.
That's
Commissioner Johnson,
that's
you wanna say
exactly
something?
right.
Mr. Chairman, I would like for us to proceed with what has been planned for tonight. And unless the applicant comes up and takes away his, he wants to withdraw. And that, we won't do anything if he withdraws, but there's a word if in there that they have to consider. Are we willing to address it later on and look at all of this and all that? But as far as tonight goes, everybody's had ample opportunity to address what we're here for. Unless I would love for us to go ahead and not delay our decision tonight unless the applicant withdraws.
Okay.
And then we'll go with the ifs and the later, looking at this or that or not or whatever. That's, I guess you can call that a game of chance.
I'm inclined to.
I'd like to go ahead and proceed with what's been planned. We have a lot of citizens and landowners and others here tonight for us to make a call, if we make the call tonight.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else here? Mr. Jones, how do we proceed from here?
Proceed to allow the applicant to come up and start this and present this.
You got to open the hearing.
Yep, got to open public hearing.
And then
Okay, at any time. Okay. I'm going to open the public hearing. The planning board has previously made a decision of finding on a rezoning request involving Red Oak Development from a zoning of community business and rural development to highway business conditional. This board needs to consider this rezoning request tonight, and we need to hear all parties get involved. And at this time, I'm going to call for a public hearing and invite anybody from the audience to come down and say their piece. Community members, members involved on both sides or any sides. If you will, let's be kind and gentle as we can, and let's try to limit our comments to 4 or 5 minutes if we can, and we all need to get out of here and go home. Yes, sir.
Anyone wanting information about this hearing when tonight is over, if you come up, will you put your name, email address, and phone number on this clipboard here? Just, that's all I want to say.
Are you referring to, in regards to where this issue goes in the future, if you want to be involved and given updates on where the process is, if there's been a new site plan, if there's been one that's turned over to the, or if they want to petition this board to get permission to turn it over to the planning board in the future or the near future, or if they want to wait.
We've had a lot of requests.
Now.
We've had a lot of requests for information.
All right.
And it's been hard to get it to those people because we don't have all their email
All right.
addresses.
For transparency, anybody wants to continue to follow this, he's saying we have a sign-up sheet here tonight, and you can put down your name and your email address, or just simply your email address, and we'll keep you updated. At this
And
time,
the county website also is a good resource, and Surry on the Go, for updates on the topic.
yeah. Go to the county website for public information. Watch for your local newspapers. I'm sure to be there, the public statements, and you have an email opportunity to sign up for updates. Mr. Jones, you're wanting to jump in.
Just as a point of clarification, are we going to allow the applicant to present his case before the board first? He is petitioner, or are we going to allow public comment?
I guess we should allow thank you, Mr. Jones, the petitioner that's given the application to come first.
Yes.
I agree.
If you could come up, please, and this is a legislative hearing, and Corey George is allowed to speak with and on behalf of as the engineer and the architect and the surveyor.
Mr. George, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome.
I just had a quick procedural question, if, and this may be a question for Mr. John or Mr. Waltz. Is it possible in a scenario that this board could send this revised site plan back to the planning board for review, alleviating the need for withdrawal and resubmittal, which would then not trigger the 12-month requirement?
Ed and I have looked at that, and the problem is that this site plan, and I haven't studied it, has a whole new entrance on it. And if it is substantially different or substantial change, then it has to be re-advertised and go through the whole process again.
Understand. Technically, it's not a second entrance, but it is a second connection point to recirculate traffic. And that is basically based on some additional conversations that we've had on the community. And so we felt like it was in the best interest of the community to revise the site plan and understand that if that needs to be reheard before the planning board, I'm just asking procedural questions. If it was available from this board to send it back.
Yeah, our opinion is that it needs to start out as a petition, as a new petition before the planning board, because it is different than what's been advertised. Correct, Ed?
Yes, it's different than what's been advertised and what's been on file in the planning office, that I don't know if any citizens went and looked at it, but that's sort of the general rule, that they have that opportunity. And it would be sort of like, and I don't mean to be offensive, but it's like a bait and switch. You need to advertise what is going to be considered. And so far, this new plat, it may be the best thing on earth, but nobody's seen it.
I understand that,
Including
and that's why
me,
I'm asking the
including
procedural
me.
question.
Yeah.
Is if we send it back to planning board, then it gets re-advertised, but we don't have to go through any withdrawal or reapplication.
Yeah, I mean, and it's an interesting question, and I understand where you're coming from. Unfortunately, the process that's mandated by 160D and also by the ordinance is that a petition comes in, it goes to the planning board, they review it, and they make a recommendation up or down or up with modifications. They've done that, and they've done their duty. I'm not seeing anything, we've looked at this. If we were still in front of the planning board, they could take a timeout and schedule another meeting before they go through that process. We're not locating any authority for allowing this to go back to the planning board and come back before this body. Correct, Ed?
It's my understanding if they don't withdraw, we either vote yes or no.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's done.
That's it. That's it.
It's understandable.
Tonight.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and for essence of time, we're going to move forward, but if people are looking for a restroom, you go right back out the hall and it's right to your left as you go out of the building. I see some people coming in and going, somebody has told me people are looking for the bathroom. It's right outside the door, just turn left. It sounds like we're going round and round, Mr. Jones, back and forth, back and forth.
But it is what it is. We either vote
Yeah.
on this tonight or it's withdrawn.
Yeah, and I'm no criticizing, no criticism intended. I'm just saying we have done that a few times, and I feel like now we either need to move forward and open the public hearing and, you know, let the applicant say or do whatever they want to do and proceed from there.
I agree.
All right. It is now time for the public hearing concerning the Red Oak development and its rezoning request to be heard, and I will invite the petitioner for Red Oak to come forward.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jason Tate with Red Oak Development. So we have obviously been back and forth many times with this project. Is a very unique situation. We have some data showing sort of why we're to this point with having to make these decisions. I want to reiterate on the revised drawing, the way that came about, we had no intentions of actually revising that drawing. There was a concerned citizen against this project that actually made a phone call Thursday afternoon to Mr. Rowe, that's part of Red Oak Development, and had the recommendation with what the planning board had said about emergency egress, trucks unloading, flow of traffic, things like that, that if the possibility was to get this dual lane to an adjacent property we have there was possible, that he possibly could get the community to back off. We thought that was great news. That's what we've asked from day one, was to try to community to tell us what the concerns are so we could attack the concerns. This is not a matter of rezoning for any profit for us, any profit for the company Five Star operating. It's what's best for everyone involved. We're not there just for us or the community or them. You know, we want the best for everyone involved. And that was the purpose for our February the 6th meeting. Unfortunately, that's the first one we'd ever done. We didn't know what to expect. We were told that there could be 15 to 16 people show up. We made accommodations for those, and we had 4 to 5. Now, some was sickness, some was working, children-related issues, we understand. During that meeting, there was 2 folks there that we feel like are very against this project and the rezoning. And one made a comment that he would like some additional shrubbery in areas of existing business next door. No problem. You know, we said, hey, we can accommodate that. We did make it very verbal to the community that if you just don't want this business here, we can't help that. We're not the board that can make that decision. But if you want to change to any drawing or any comment, we're here to help, right? We're not here to do anything invasive to anyone involved. At that time, the other member actually stood up and told us the reason he was upset was he was in line to purchase this property, which we had no idea. And even went as far as to making the comment that if he had have purchased it, there would be a carport company there because he wanted to lease it to a carport company. And the only difference in him and us is he would not have renovated the property and made any positive changes, which was very shocking to hear that from a member that was completely against the project. I hate to bring that up here, but that's facts that I think people need to hear. So there's been a lot of comments back and forth. Until December, I'd never been to a planning board meeting or a commissioners meeting in my life. I didn't even know where to come to. Very nervous talking in front of people and getting better at it because I've got a lot of practice lately. But, there's a lot of things here I would like to share. One, if I may just kind of share it around, this was an existing business that was actually there, I want to say in 2007 or 8, maybe even 9. So I took some time and it was a woodworking architectural or architectural woodworking. And so I wanted to define what that meant. I had no idea what that was. And that's actually considered manufacturing. They could manufacture staircases, custom trim and things that they bring. The definition was they bring raw materials in and they manufacture them into a good that the general public would want to purchase. So I just thought that was very interesting that this property has been that at some point in its life under manufacturing. Another point I would like to point out is there's been some discussion of and comments from the public that we are actually destroying rural agriculture farmland. It needs to remain farmland. It needs to remain what people remembers when they were children and in this community, that this business needs to go somewhere else. So we took those opinions from the public and we didn't have a solution for those. But I would like to pass over these two highlighted drawings that actually shows that we were only, one drawing actually shows in yellow what is RA, and the other orange actually shows what is currently CB. There's a whole list of items you guys may be familiar with that you can actually operate in the CB classification. Many of those businesses are very much more invasive to this area than what we feel like we are proposing that's already currently there. But I wanted to point out, we're only actually taking about 5.5 acres that's in RA now and changing it to the HB. So we're not changing the whole entire property. There's a lot of rural land behind it that just does not have the means of building or constructing. So that's why that was never put into any of the zoning requests. There was comments that, they would just keep building and building and building and expanding. There was another comment made that I need to clarify that said that during the application process, 5-star metal buildings has grown 35%. And what that means is 5-star metal buildings has grown 35% in their sales volume. And the reason being, this facility allows them the ability to build an 80-foot wide clear span truss. They've never had that ability. That did not mean they needed more employees. That did not mean that they needed anything else other than additional metal and the ability to have a building that they could construct that, which those buildings sell for many times what a smaller building sells for. So now they were able to go after that market that they had never had an opportunity to do. So that's where the 35% comes in. Another point that I would like to make, which was sort of concerning, is we have this on a conditional request, and this is a list of what we're not asking to be able to use HB for. HB clearly could be used for. We do not want those items that's on that list that says that we will not put in that zoning. We wouldn't want those businesses within the community. So it's a conditional request alleviating those items that's on the list there. Let's see. There was another item that that we feel like we need to mention. That there's another possible community member that may voice their concerns against this. We took their comments into consideration. The last thing I want to do is go to bed at night thinking that I've put something in a community that I wouldn't want in my own community, or that was endangering my children or my parents or my grandparents and so forth. So that person, voiced against the project very heavily. And come to find out, they operate a company that's very close to this property that is completely operated in a rural agriculture zone. That is just as invasive to the community as what the carport company is. So it really made me scratch my head with, why would someone be so against this project when it's already zoned CB? We're changing from CB to HB when you're operating numerous acres and a company within an RA zoning. Like, I don't understand that. So I just wanted to point that out to the commissioners as well. Ultimately, we would love the commissioners to allow us to go before the planning board. And the only reason that we say that is we would have never made these changes without the community member calling and saying, hey, what about this? This is a great idea. You know, this may work. And we're like, we're finally getting somewhere, right? I mean, we want to do what's right. We want to do what you guys want to see done in your community. And we had no idea how to do that properly with the law. And obviously it's very detailed and complex and seems almost somewhat impossible without the commissioner's approval for us to do that. So with all that being said, we did have the meeting. We did go before the planning board. The planning board rejected us, and we feel like from the explanation of they did not feel like that there was adequate emergency lane travels. There could be a presentation that's presented tonight that does not really do complete justice of the area that's there to work with. The photos were taken by drone footage without our consent, which is okay. We're not upset about that. But it does not show the path of what the path is there today. That was during time where materials were being shifted and so forth. The items that we're very concerned about that the community will voice as well as the traffic. 5-star metal buildings only gets, and I spent some time with them after that meeting to find out exactly day to day, 5 days a week, what goes on at your business. They have 7 semi-loads of materials max per week. The issues being is those deliveries may be scheduled on Tuesday, but they don't show up till Wednesday. So therefore you have 2 trucks stacked up instead of having 1 per day and so forth. That's out of their control. But also it's not fair to the community for those trucks to be parked on the side of the road either. This plan, the plan that you guys have in the packet shows the parking area out back, shows an unloading area. Just did not show the 2 additional lanes of egress to get out of that area, which was a concern to the planning board. We really feel like that we had that conversation during the community meeting. We could have put that on there. We didn't realize that would change the public's view of that rear property. So they have 28 install crews. When we're talking an install crew, the crew doesn't meet there. They don't park their car there. They have the dually pickup truck, which you may hear tonight that their heavy loads are destroying the road. You know, we showed evidence to the planning board that these trucks are within half of what DOT says can operate on it. So long story short with that, these crews come in, they get their load, they're there for 4 to 6 hours and they leave and go to a project. They are gone between 3 and 4 days on average. So at any given day, we have no more than 6 to 7 trucks loading on an average. Again, they could get delayed, they could show up early. There's times we need the overflow parking in the rear in order to alleviate the crews parking on the side of the road and clogging up the fire egress lane that we call it. Other items that we had talked about with the community was obviously the shrubbery. Mr. Haymore has a very beautiful farm next door. Some trash and things can easily blow over there. The drawing you have in your packet, and this highlighted drawing actually shows that much more legible versus trying to look for a buffer in that packet. The green areas show where we plan on doing shrubbery. We doing fencing to eliminate those issues from interfering with Mr. Haymore's farmland. The businesses that we figured have operated there within the 30 years, Sherman Simpson had a construction company there from the late 60s to the mid 70s. Smith Row Bridge Company actually manufactured bridge trusses there. They actually went out and installed the trusses from there. They welded H-piles and different things on that property. The furniture, what I call furniture manufacturer, if you will, which was the packet I gave you, was also there. And then a company called Blue Ridge Truck and Trailer used it for engine storage and truck rear ends and chassis and things like that. So one other piece I want to share, Mr. Haymore had made a comment that, you know, it was very hard for him to have his morning breakfast and look at, you know, the mess that's over there, referring to the carport company, which was very shocking to us. And it really hit home. You know, these folks have one of the nicest facilities that I've seen within the county. And I think there's over 100 carport, maybe not manufacturers, but carport dealers and installers and manufacturers within the county. So this first photo is going to be how many trucks was there. When we bought the property, we had moved 111 trucks from the property that were visual from Mr. Haymore's farm, which was not a pleasant thought. Now, we understood that the gentleman that operates the business next door, that's the nature of his business. We understand that. We're not saying that it should or shouldn't be there. We just felt like that we made a huge improvement to that property that we're asking for rezoning during that time. So that's pretty much all I have for now.
All right. Anyone else on behalf of the petitioner? Making the case for rezoning? Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask a question if I could.
yes, go
Could you-
right ahead.
And maybe this is a silly question, but this colossal group of Coke trucks next door, that don't have anything to do with you or any of this, does it?
So that's a very touchy subject within us as the landowner.
Within who?
With us as the landowner. So we bought this property from the gentleman that actually operates that business. With the understanding that he was going to purchase another property somewhere else and move his business there. We were told 12 months, and I think he had issues with another property, which is very hard to find a proper property to do the business he does. We all understand that. So he is still currently there. There has been talks about he possibly may be moving to a different location. And that brings me to a good point. During the community meeting, one community member said, hey, if they were up there as well, I would have no issue with this. Well, that would solely be our intent if it was zoned properly. But if he leaves tomorrow, we're not zoned properly for them to go next door, which would.
So you own the property where the Coke trucks are, is that correct?
Yes, sir. There's roughly 32 acres there total, and 3 different parcels. 2 are zone CB, or sorry, four different parcels. 2 are zone CB, 2 are zoned RA.
And, okay. And so he has your permission to have all that there, is that what I'm?
Well, he doesn't necessarily have our permission. He was there when we bought the property. So,
But it's still your responsibility. The Coke trucks.
I
that are there, I
guess
mean-
it could be. And I think the zoning is correct in CB that he can have those there from what I understand.
And okay, I have a question for you. And I know this is not pertaining to the rezoning. This is kind of a ancillary question. Can I ask it, Counselor?
I'll say, yeah.
Go ahead and ask.
Okay. So have you engaged legal counsel in regards to this?
I have not. And the reason we haven't is because we kept hearing that, he had found a different location.
Okay, I would have to, after an extended period of time, if you have not engaged legal counsel in regards to property that you own where this is taking place, I would have to assume that there's tacit permission on your behalf that it's okay to do this.
I think it would be on the planning board's behalf. I think they've been out and determined that he was properly zoned for what he's doing in that particular property. I could be wrong.
I think where Mr. Harris is going is if you don't want him there, it's your responsibility to try to get him gone. I mean.
Are you going to try to get him gone or not?
Well, that's not something that we feel like is morally right to do, right? When we bought the property, we gave him a handshake agreement that until he found his property he was moving to, that he stated hopefully within a year, which was the key word, hopefully, that we would allow him to stay there. Now, if there was a zoning issue that he was violating the zoning and he was received a letter and we received a letter as property owner, we would have no choice.
How long ago did you buy this property, sir?
2021, the end of 20.
Okay, so it's been over a year, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right. That's all I have, Mr.
And we have made contact with him. We have not got the final answer to his decision on.
Yeah, I wouldn't,
when and
your
where.
business to run however you see fit. I was just trying to
Yeah.
say if you were saying you wish you weren't there or you were glad he's there, or whether it's your responsibility that works out.
We're not necessarily comparing businesses over there. Obviously, that we feel the carport industry would be less invasive for the public eye, the public, safety of those trucks and so forth.
But you're not giving him an eviction notice or anything?
No,
like that?
no, sir. We did make phone contact last week. Mr. Rowe had some medical issues going on and was not able to reach out to him on Friday. We hope to have a conclusion with him this week.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else on behalf of the petitioner to request rezoning for the Red Oak Development rezoning request? Okay. No one else? Yes, sir. No. No one else? I will ask for other public input from other interested parties to come down to the microphone and comment your wishes or or your request or your feelings, if you will. This is a little different than open forum. We're all wanting to get in bed sometime tonight, so for the essence of time, we'd like to suggest maybe keeping it 5 minutes or under, but we can't hold you to that. We're not going to come down there and drag you off if you go a little over, but if you'll be as brief as you can and precise as you need to be, tell us who you are and what your comments are. Phone number, who you are, what your name is, and what your phone number is.
Certainly. Excuse me. My name's Bill Haymore. My telephone number is 336-408-0731. I'm an adjacent property owner. And I've prepared some visual aids if they're available that we could pull those up. I sent them earlier this week. Thank you. This is a map, just a property map of the area that we're looking at rezoning. Highlighted in yellow is the property that we're speaking of, and the community therefore around it. Everything on Old Highway 601, to my knowledge and what I've been able to research, there's nothing else on highway business. And I offer a listing of 190 properties in Surry County that are highway business, none of which are on this road. So if you'd like to see that, I'm sorry, I didn't make copies for anyone else. Okay, conditional zoning requests. For the sake of time, we all understand that we've asked to rezone the property into highway business. The rezoning request facts. These are just facts for the board. Again, no other properties are zoned highway business on Old Highway 601. The current business is occupied and operated a business not permitted by current zoning for over a year. The business cannot be legally operated without rezoning. 5 new buildings were constructed without zoning compliance, environmental health inspection permitting, building permits, ADA compliance inspection. Surry County Planning and Zoning Board unanimously rejected the request to support rezoning. The location failed to meet the requirements of the Surry County Land Use Plan, and requested zoning is not a fit for the site. This is just an illustration of the number of buildings that have been built since the current tenant is operating there, none of which have been permitted. Neighborhood conformity. The surrounding parcels are zoned residential agriculture. Spot zoning of this property contrasts with the zoning regulations that apply to surrounding parcels. Again, no other properties are zoned highway business on Old Highway 601. The zoning will result in a reduction of property values in the area. That's an opinion. I'm not an expert on that. The compatibility of requested zoning is not consistent with the comprehensive zoning plan and is recommended by the Surry County Zoning and Planning Board. You can make your own opinion how this affects local property values. I don't think there's anything else has to be said about the appearance of the property. Community impact from the traffic, increased road traffic of semi trucks hauling raw materials, transporting the finished goods and waste. That happens on a daily basis. The lack of a DOT study performed to determine the impact of the roads of the local traffic. There's increased danger from trucks entering the highway and are stopped in the highway. DOT is currently addressing safety concerns from operating in a right-of-way. As Mr. Tate had mentioned, the business has grown, whether it's revenue or it has grown. So growth of a business on highway business will continue to compound safety issues. The more it grows, the more traffic is involved with growth. Here's a copy of the notice from DOT dated December the 5th. This condition has not been addressed per DOT as of today, when I followed up on it. This is an illustration of what DOT is addressing. The area directly adjacent to the road is paved and marked for employee parking. So just a lot of traffic that has to enter in one concentrated area. This is a site plan that the community has saw, and I do agree with what Mr. Tate said. If there was something to do, that something would help traffic, anything's an improvement. But in this site plan, there's a single road that comes into this property. All the manufacturing activity that takes place is on each side of the road. If you load a truck, if you unload a truck, if you stage a truck, it has to stop in the middle of the road. You cannot get a semi truck in there. There is no way to turn a semi truck around. The parking lot that's illustrated in the back is non-existent. That's a future plan. But again, the company has been operating for a year. This is the gate that's entering into the building, which constrains the traffic down to a single lane coming in, making it more difficult for large vehicles to get in and out. Just an example of what you see when you drive by the neighborhood. There's no space for a tractor and trailer to get in off the road to deliver materials or to pick up materials. This is an aerial, as you saw early, of the site. As you can see, if you're going from right to left, that's a lay down area of materials that have to be loaded in order to fulfill an order for this. Trucks have to stop there, be loaded. They make their way through the rest of the facility to be loaded. And they have to turn around or get turned around somehow to get out of the property, but there's just not adequate means of egress in the event that there was an emergency. Not for me, but maybe for their employees. Hopefully there no such thing. And this is just a view as you were driving down the road, that in between the buildings that I showed. So you see it's very limited. There's material stored on both sides of the road going in there. It's very hard to get in and out. There's no deceleration or acceleration lanes for trucks entering or leaving the site. That may not be common practice for a small road like Highway 601, but the one thing you might be able to notice from this business sets in a curve. So as oncoming traffic comes in and there's a truck trying to enter or exit that facility, it's very dangerous to the community. We live in a community that has churches and people taking their kids to and from school on a daily basis. And so this is what they have to contend with. It's just not correct. The zoning does not fit the area, the residential area that is in. The next slide, hopefully my technology will work. I didn't take this video, but a concerned neighbor sent it to me within the last week and said, this is what happens to me when I'm going to work. Well, obviously my technology is not going to work, but you can see in the photograph, there's a tractor trailer that had blocked both lanes of traffic and is having to back into the site. I don't think in any community, it's a good idea for a tractor and trailer to cross two lanes of traffic in a curve to back into an industrial site. Environmental concerns, no environmental stormwater management in place. Stormwater enters local ponds and tributaries untreated. Trash and outdoor storage pollute neighborhood properties. Businesses operating 7 days a week with multiple shifts, creating noise pollution from the expansion of the activities. Just trash that you see in the area. Just in summary, the proposed use is not a fit for our community. Serious traffic issues will be compounded by approving the use of highway business conditional and expanding the manufacturing. In my opinion, property values will be negatively affected by the proposed use. Stormwater from the manufacturing without proper management jeopardizes water quality. Adjoining farms are negatively affected with trash, stormwater runoff. Currently, not what's proposed, but currently, there's no screening or buffers in place, and nor have they been for the last year since this business has been in operation. Our community is not against business. And as was mentioned, there's been businesses that operated there for years, but they operated in concert with our community. There was not a negative effect or caused any safety concern, and they shouldn't. A community shouldn't have to worry about health, safety, and the way of life. Please do not allow this community to be degraded. And again, this is what our community looks like. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Haymore. Any other comments from the community? Representatives or anybody else? Come forward, please. We've allowed the petitioner a little latitude of time and some of the people with a slideshow, but if you will, try to get 4 or 5 minutes, and we were happy to hear what you got to say. Tell us your name and your phone number.
Pam Donley, 336-429-6354. Considering how that area was zoned to begin with, I do not understand how we get to this point. How was that allowed to even be started to be built there, considering how it was zoned to begin with?
Okay, thank you for your comment. Anyone else? Yes, we have a taker coming right on up. Please, sir, give us your name and your phone. Yes, you can pass those out. Thank you. Name and phone number, please.
You're not gonna spam me, are you? Okay. My name's Jason Easter. Phone number is 336-710-7570. I just want to tell you just real quickly a little bit about myself, so you can understand that I'm qualified to speak to this issue. Just in recent years, I at one time held a North Carolina General Contractor License, an unlimited Virginia Contractor License, North Carolina and Virginia P&W Phase Pest Control License, and a North Carolina Home Inspector License. I understand the process, okay? I've built a lot of things in a lot of counties, a lot of municipalities. So I know the process, what it's supposed to be from point A to point B to achieve that CO. That magic piece of paper that gets you the final draw as a builder, okay? None of this happened in this case. We're talking about zoning, okay? When we haven't mentioned the buildings, okay? So I want to speak to that clearly and in detail so everybody here can get an idea of our neighbors and what's happened, okay? So the packet I just gave you came directly from your county. This is not opinion, it's not emotion. I spent Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday last week at your county central permitting office, and I had all these documents presented to me from your county, okay? So this isn't my opinion. This is what you have. This is your paper trail, okay? They just said, this business has operated here for more than a year. The first piece of paper submitted to the county at all for any application, which was zoning, okay, was November of last year. So they operated a year with no permission, buildings flying up all over the place. Nothing being inspected, nothing engineered, nothing looked at whatsoever. It's a life safety issue, and we're going to get to that. I have spoken with so many people in the last few days, and let me tell you who they are. Keith Kiger, your lead building official. Kevin Connor, he made the first inspection at this property on October the 11th of last year. He went along with Jimmy Ashburn. I haven't spoken with him yet. I left him messages for 3 days. He also went to that first inspection. I've talked with Adrian Gardner from Central Permitting and Zoning. I've talked with Curtis Huff. He is the investigator for this zone for the North Carolina Licensing Board for General Contractors. I've talked with David Boulay. He's for this zone from North Carolina General Board of Contractors for HVAC and Plumbing. I've also spoken with Sam Whittington. He's at the North Carolina State Department of Insurance, the fire marshal's office for the state. And I've been advised by all of these people, and this is what I have to present to you tonight after these conversations and the paperwork that I've obtained, and looking, just simply looking at the site as I drive by it a dozen times a day. It makes me sick because I spent 20 years doing it right. I spent 20 years. Sometimes I'd wait 6 or 8 months to get a permit. You know what that does? It costs you money as a builder. You know what it does? It pisses off the homeowner. But I waited. I went through the proper steps and I did it right to get the CO, to get that final draw that everybody wants. They get to move in, I get to get paid and move on. That's how the process works. There's multiple steps involved, way before zoning. Way before zoning. Before you throw a commercial structure up that spans, I don't know how many hundreds of feet, those trusses that weigh no telling how much, that require no telling what kind of support, what kind of foundation that wasn't engineered. Show me the piece of paper that says it was. Show me the piece of paper that says what size rebar is in that foundation. Show me the piece of paper from a structural engineer that allows that span and allows them to do it. Show it to me. It's not there. I'm not just presenting you what the county has. I'm showing you also what you don't. I'm showing you what you don't have. There's no paper trail for anything to have been done on this property at all. You can't put a 10 by 10 shed in this county on a property without a permit. You can't build a monstrosity like they did and start welding in it, fabricating. I don't even know why we're talking about zoning. I'm glad we are. It's part of the process, but we're way past that. Way past that. Okay? This is way more of a problem than just what they're allowed to do in the buildings. The buildings are a problem. The buildings. It's a life safety issue. That's what it is. The entire building code is about one thing. It's about safety. That's it. That's why it's in place. That's why there's code enforcement. That's why people like Keith Kiger have a job, because he keeps the community safe, enforcing the safety codes. That's what the building inspection code is for. That's why the North Carolina State put it out. Everybody knows that. So what I want to establish tonight, who built the buildings? Who built the buildings? I called Kevin Connor. I asked him. He went to the surprise inspection. The only reason they went is because another inspector happened to drive down Old 601 and he said, we need to inspect this property. So him and Jimmy Ashburn went to the property the very next day and did a surprise inspection on the property, okay? I asked him, did you bother to ask who built the buildings? No, we didn't ask that. Why? I said, do you know who built them? He said, yeah, my boss Keith told me that Five Star built the buildings. Five Star Metal Buildings is not a general contractor. They're in violation of North Carolina statutes right now. They're impersonating a general contractor, and they're guilty of Article 87. They're violating Article 87, North Carolina General Statute 87, 87-13, and 87-13.1, which means that any citizen in this building can go file an injunction against them right now. And if they keep working, then they're in contempt. That's how serious it is. But they're allowed to keep working. Let's just keep pumping them out. Just keep pumping those carports out in the buildings by their own paperwork, by their own admission in the zoning permit that they finally filled out. They state there's 7 employees per building. How many people are in danger in those buildings right now? The county knows. The county knows, okay? The paperwork's here that says they're telling you they've got employees in those buildings. Your inspectors have been to those sites and they've seen that nothing has been inspected about those buildings, yet the employees continue to work in those buildings. So who is liable for that? If somebody got hurt or killed in one of those buildings, who foots the bill? Who does that? I would imagine, I'm not an attorney, I would imagine the county would share part of that liability. It's aware the cat's, we all know what's happening. Cat's out of the bag, okay? We know it hasn't been done. None of the steps have been taken. When they did these inspections, okay, they did this first inspection and found that the buildings were there and they're not supposed to be there, so they put a stop work, they put a stop work order on the building. Everybody knows this, it's in the letter. Okay, first of all, they didn't talk to the owner. Justin doesn't own five-star metal buildings, okay? He can't make these decisions. They kept referring to him as the owner. He's not, okay? So they put these stop work orders up, and then they go back and do another inspection on the 12th of December. And this is the one that I find the most interesting. Because at that inspection, okay, 2 months have passed. 2 months have passed. The inspections department and the fire marshal, which has lots of authority in this county, he can issue a CO or he can make you vacate the property. Okay? For 2 months, they're allowed to work on this property. Employees are in the building for 2 solid months. Why? Why was nothing done? Not one code enforced. The power wasn't pulled from the buildings. They didn't make them take anything down. They got the authority to make them take every screw out of that building. That's what kind of authority that the lead building inspector has because it's a life safety concern. But nothing happened. Why? Man, that just puzzles me because, you know, I've been involved in failed inspections. As much stuff as I built, everybody's had a failed inspection. You get your butt in order to get it passed so you can move on to the next phase. Nothing happened. 2 months. All of a sudden, we have 3 people go back out to the site. And let's look at that because this is really interesting. We had Keith Kiger, the lead official, lead building inspector. We had the fire marshal go back out, and we had Mark Marion go out. In all the years that I built, I never had ever a commissioner grace my presence at a building site. Never. I just find it odd. So I want to end this with a few questions, okay? Sorry I got a little loud, but the more I dealt with this week, the more pissed I got about it, just to put it bluntly. It's pathetic. It really is. Was any proper step taken by this owner when they constructed these buildings? The answer is no. And your lack of paperwork at the county proves it. Okay? Was anything done to enforce the code once the county was aware that the code was being violated? No. They didn't go back for 2 months. They gave them a little laundry list of stuff to do, like put a fire extinguisher up, put a little set of steps here and get that stuff out from in front of the door. They went back the same day and approved it. Are you kidding me? Are you serious? Who does that? I'm telling y'all, I have been involved in inspections that took weeks to issue to alleviate a problem. I'm not, the same day for these kind of buildings that they build and 7 people per building inside of those buildings, nothing was done after that. They're allowed to keep building, doing what they want to do. Why are there 2 sets of rules? Why are there 2 sets of rules? I have a set of rules that I had to follow for 20 years building all over this state and in Virginia, and I followed those rules. Why don't they have to follow it? Why are there no penalties? You can pull the power, you can make them vacate the property and tear the daggum buildings down. You can do that. You can do it. So this is not where it's going to end. I've got more questions, but this is not where it's going to end. Other steps are being taken, okay? And I was advised of these steps by the state officials that I mentioned earlier. We're filing a complaint officially with the state fire marshal's office to investigate this county as to why these codes weren't enforced, as to why this business is still operating in those unsafe buildings. I have a few more questions. Mr. Marion, these questions are for you. Are you a building expert? Do you know anything at all about the North Carolina Building Code, about the ADA code, about fire safety? At all? About DOT regulations? Then why did you go to the site?
Because I wanted to.
Why?
I'm allowed to.
Okay. It don't make any sense to me. Never happened for
Don't have
me.
to make sense to you.
Okay, just wanted to know. I just want you to vocalize your answer.
Did.
Okay. That's all I have. Anybody have any questions?
Yes, sir. Yeah, you have any other comment?
I don't.
All right.
Y'all have a good night. Thanks for your
Sure,
time.
anytime. Anyone else with comment concerning the request from Red Oak for rezoning? Yes, ma'am. Come on up, state your name and your phone number, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Hattie Brentel. My phone number is 336-786-4413. I've typed my comments, so hopefully I can keep them to about 3 minutes for you.
Thank you, you do just fine.
The first thing I'd like to do is ask everyone here from the local community to stand up. All that are that have concerns about what's taking place. We are here to ask you to deny the variance and rezoning request for Red Oak Development LLC. These requests arose because of what we see is willful disregard by the property owner. Updated Surry County GIS mapping is how I thought these buildings were found. And if it was a drive-by by the inspections department, then I was misinformed. But they were located, a building inspection took place, a cease and desist was ordered. And as I understand, the commissioners at the December meeting may have lifted that, or it took place at another time. I'm not aware. Was there a cease and desist order that was issued by the building inspections department?
None that we were involved in. I think I heard that there was, but we're not involved in that process typically.
What happens when that wasn't? I mean, how did that change? I think is what we want to understand. How did the cease and desist get lifted? Does anyone know? Okay. It was lifted. The cease and desist order was issued, and then and only then did the building owner take notice. They had stated they were not aware that their tenant was a metal carport manufacturing company or metal building manufacturing company, nor that they understood that they were not zoned for a metal manufacturing company. Just as Mr. Haymore stated, there are no other HB zoning on Old Highway 601 because that road doesn't allow it. If you've ever driven down it behind a slow car, you want to spit because there are two passing zones. And the area where this business is located, it is a blind curve coming up, and it is located, a blind hill, excuse me, and it is located in a curve. I do not fault the business owner as much as I fault the property owner, because the property owners are both contractors, and they are fully aware of permitting and requirements, just as Mr. Easter stated. Last Monday night, the planning board did vote 5-0. As we had a list of the questions they were asking, true or false. Does it have an impact, positive impact on the community, negative, et cetera? 5-0, but we're here today. And I didn't understand the process of why it now has to come before you as our Board of Commissioners. But Mr. Jones tried his best to explain that to all of us that night at the meeting. Adherence to the rules and enforcement of the rules should apply to everyone equally. Again, just as Mr. Easter stated. The planning board voted 5-0. I hope you take that into consideration. I understand there's a new site plan. I don't think that it matters to this community. I think the business doesn't have anything to do with it's not zoned, it's not sized. They changed their maps to make it a 10-acre request when they have almost 30. If you approve the 10-acre request, they'll be back, and it'll be eventually a 30-acre request, still on a blind hill, still in a curve, still on a 2-lane rural highway. Also, based upon, and Mr. Jones, you help me if I'm saying this incorrectly, based upon Code Section 154006-14, which is called the intent of zoning districts, it states that HB zoning should have direct access to major roadways, and their sites should have access to public water and sewer. That's in your code section on your website. As I said, no other businesses are zoned HB on 601 for Old Highway 601 for a reason. But there are 190 in the county all located elsewhere. Mr. Tate did state in a letter to you that there had been 35% growth, and I can understand their ability to build bigger or to do whatever it may be. But again, we are asking for you to deny this request and to understand that what the decision you make is going to establish a precedent. I also have talked to numerous people, and everyone knows when I call what I'm talking about. This is not just something that comes to this meeting that we all ignore and that just passes or doesn't and it goes away. Our community cares. We're here. And we would like your consideration to deny this request. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Mr. George.
I'll be brief. I only need 30 or 40 minutes.
Yes, sir. We'll take that 30, 40 seconds.
I'm just gonna, I'd like to offer a couple of items of clarifications.
He's already given us your name, phone number tonight. One time.
Have not Corey George. My number is 336-422-6741. You've heard, I'll be as brief as I possibly can. We've heard a couple of concerns about traffic and just wanted to make a couple of comments regards to that, similar comments that I had made at the planning board in regards to our site plan, and certainly agree that there are traffic issues as it currently is. And I think that's what we're trying to solve with the new site plan associated with the conditional rezoning, is it's going to force the tenant and it's going to force the landowner in order to make these improvements, which are going to help the traffic flow. Even this third revision is even we feel like an addition to improved traffic. We've got room for two-way. I think we're going to modify, assuming if we were able to successfully rezone the property, we would force them to modify their operations a little bit in order to account for that traffic. There are some comments in regard to stormwater. Surry County is not a phase 2 stormwater county. Nothing triggers permanent stormwater regulations in the county unless it's a water supply watershed, trout water, or some high quality water. Old Highway 601 is none of those things. So there's nothing, and this is extremely common in rural counties. You see permanent stormwater required in large cities and counties like Wake County, Forsyth County, and that type of thing. So no permanent stormwater is required. Though for the erosion control, if they were to move forward with the construction of the parking lot or any improvements, they'd be required to meet Department of Environmental Quality erosion control regulations, disturbed over an acre, whatever. There's construction stormwater requirements for that they would have to do. In regards to the buffers, currently there are no buffers. Those buffers are to be installed. They will provide the visual screens in accordance with the county ordinance from adjacent property owners. That includes opaque fences, that includes shrubbery, trees, natural buffers where appropriate. There's no acceleration or deceleration lanes. Nothing here really that would trigger those. Typically, those are triggered by DOT. DOT would require those. Those are more of a trips per day type thing in regard to traffic flow. With the site plan as proposed, and even in the revised version, the driveways are certainly wide enough. We accounted for 12-foot lanes, so 24-foot, that is a full 2-lane of travel. I mean, most of our 2-lane roads here are 12-foot lanes or even 10-foot lanes. So the lanes coming here would be as wide as what we're able to circulate them through on the site. So I'll be happy to answer any questions, but thank you.
Thanks, John. Thank you, Mr. George. Anyone else on behalf of, come right on up, state your name, phone number.
You're okay.
Yes, ma'am. Tell us your name and your phone number, please.
So my name is Charlotte Dolly High, phone number 336-325-5227. I'm a property owner, one of the property owners that Mr. Tate referred to, within 1 mile of the 5-star Red Oak development property. I chose to live in this community because of its rural agricultural farming nature. I'm here to ask you to vote against the rezoning of this property to keep our community as it is somewhat. There are more appropriate places within our county, other properties, industrial parks, for businesses such as this that is not Little Old White Plains. White Plains community is not the appropriate place for this. I'm speaking as a parent and on behalf of other parents that's asked me to speak for them of the White Plains community that agree with me by saying that this is not the location for this business and that we want a place for our children and grandchildren to be able to farm and hunt and fish without this business growth right in the middle of it. If this is voted yes and y'all go for it, that's all going to change. One little decision can change all this for future generations of our small community. I also feel confident that if you rezone this, as others have said, the property at the proposed acreage, that at some point an increase of acreage would be asked for. They can say this acreage is uninhabitable or unable to build on, but these two men are two of the most capable men to make that happen in this county. They say they're growing at 35% in a year and all of that. I don't know where they get their numbers, but growth is growth. They're gonna ask for more property. I can easily see the business going over the acreage, not even asking for additional zoning due to the order of operations that have been mentioned thus far. There's been some conversations briefly in the previous meetings about setting business days and hours for 5 Star to abide by. If that's the case and we discuss that matter, who will police it? When they're loading out trucks on a Saturday or a Sunday morning, do we call you guys? Ask you guys? I don't know. I don't know this order of operations. Is it citizens arrest? I mean, seriously, what do we do? Also, as it's been mentioned before, it sets a precedent that the citizens of Surry County do not have to abide by the rules and regulations set forth by the state and county unless somebody drives by and catches it. That's not the reputation I want as a Surry County citizen, and that's not the reputation you guys want. I don't want to just sit here and dwell on the safety issues and the traffic flow. We all know it's not right. We all know it's not safe. But I do have a picture that I took very recently of what I had to stop for. And that happened, I drive there 2 times a day. It's going up to a snowstorm. And this is a normal daily occurrence. I also have a 17-year-old son that takes that route to school every day, driving. So for that 17-year-old son that's abiding by the state rules and regulations of speed limits, he should not have to worry about topping a knoll, taking a curve, and a tractor and trailer facing him. Picture says worth more than 1,000 words. The 5 Star business plan thus far has been just to do it and not ask for permission, or maybe ask for forgiveness later. That's not an opinion. You've got the paperwork that shows it. As already detailed noted by other speakers tonight, county, state, regulations and rules have been a total disregard. I'm certain this is not the type of neighbors that I want and not that you want. Imagine this in your backyard happening daily. The zoning board has unanimously voted against it, and the new site plan and the other site plans and whatever will come next. I hope you guys follow suit. Let me add, as a business owner as well, small, very small business owner in White Plains, that Mr. Jason Tate here tried to discreetly point a finger in my face, saying that my business was similar to his, which is 100% untrue. The number of employees, data, I'm not going all over it. But what he has said is not true. My business, Mr. Tate, is zoned accurately and appropriately because I went through the proper channels.
Address the mic, please.
I'm sorry, it's hard to talk.
I understand.
If I want to make a point, I want to look at somebody in the eye.
Yes, ma'am.
My business is zoned accurately. I went through the proper measures. My business is zoned home occupation of a commercial nature. It's on my property that I own, that I don't rent. I did this with the assistance of the former zoning board chair, Kim Bates. I went through the proper channels. I also have another business I recently purchased in Siloam, which is the salt storage rail yard right at the Yadkin line. I just purchased that. I spent a week doing my due diligence to make sure it was zoned properly prior to purchase, taxes were correct. If I'm gonna have my name on it, I'm gonna try my best to make sure it's right. Land surveys were done prior, easements and setbacks and variances, all of that took care of prior to purchase. So if you want to throw some mud in somebody's face, make sure my zoning's right. And I've got mine right, had it right, and it's right on my other business. Do you guys have any questions for me? Comments? As a mama and a business owner, I try to do it right. I may not get it right every time. May not get it right tomorrow, but I tried.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Okay. Yeah. Tell you what, while we died, I don't know if we can or not during the hearing. We've had a request for a bathroom break, but yeah, let's wind up any other comments. I'm going to see if we have any more comments concerning the rezoning request. Okay. No more comments. The public hearing is now closed. We're going to take a quick 5-minute, 10-minute recess. We're going to allow time to go to the bathroom, then we're going to come back and proceed. Thank you. All right. The public hearing has been closed, so please understand we cannot allow any more public comment. As much as I know some of you thought about some more questions, but now the board will move back into addressing this issue. And it looks like to me, gentlemen, the charge before us here tonight is to get a consensus on what this board wants to do about the request from Red Oak to rezone the property that we've talked about here for the last hour and a half. So I'm just going to go down the line. I'm going to allow commissioner comments and try to get a consensus on which way we're going. Commissioner Marion?
Listening to all the comments tonight, I don't see how we can proceed on with it. With rezoning.
So your consensus is you think we would probably deny the request or reject it? Commissioner Goins?
Based on the recommendation of the planning board.
Commissioner Johnson?
I'll go along with what the planning board said.
Commissioner Harris?
I would concur with the planning board, and I will add that the fact that there's been multiple construction projects over there without any consent of Surry County, any permitting, inspections, and so forth, doesn't pour the oil of gladness over my head. And there's multiple things here that give me cause for concern, so I will concur with the planning board if this comes to a vote.
Okay, I intend to bring this to a vote right here and now. And the reason I asked for a consensus, the way we do these votes, typically we don't go down the line and ask for a consensus. We got a motion and a second and discussion and all that things. But because the statutes require that this board adopt a statement regarding consistency and reasonableness, just like the charge was at the planning board earlier, I wanted to get a consensus on where we were going, and I'll weigh in my 2 cents. I concur with the rest of your opinions that this board does not adopt the recommendation for approval and that we do reject this zoning amendment request, the rezoning change. So based on that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
one thing that y'all need to keep in the back of your mind, I understand you're about to vote, is if you deny the application, what's the exit strategy as far as getting them out?
Yeah, I think if it's okay with you, I'm going to get a vote on what we do.
Okay.
And then we're going to get another consensus on how we mitigate the outcome of that vote. Is that okay, Ed?
That's fine.
All right. Yes, sir, Mr. Jones?
And I think council's recommended this approach to, that you're following before, but actually our code says, you know what your consensus is now. And you know
Yes.
you're going to deny this.
Yes.
Before you do that, you need to ask yourselves, is this consistent with the Surry County Land Use Plan? And it is or it's not. And is it reasonable in the public interest? It is or is not. And Andrew will write that down and prepare consistency statement for the chairman to execute later. And your findings to support that can be very brief. And as a matter of fact, the findings of the planning board already are very brief. You could,
And this finding needs to be in form of a motion made here.
well, I think you need to do that first. That, and the motion would be that this board finds the petition rezone this property submitted by submitted and for review tonight is not consistent with the Surry County Land Use Plan, is not reasonable, and is not in the public interest because it's not consistent with the zoning and use of the surrounding area. Its impact would be incompatible with the rural nature and the agricultural and residential use of the area. And it's not reasonable to subject the county to these burdens without any other benefit.
I believe we have a unanimous consensus that says this board recommends rejection of this zoning amendment because the amendment is inconsistent with the Surry County Land Use Plan, is not reasonable, and is not in the public interest. Because this request is not consistent with the zoning and use of the surrounding area, it is incompatible impact with rural nature and agricultural and residential use of the area, and the requested uses would not be compatible with the surrounding community, reasonable, or in the public interest. And because of that reason, may I
You need to make a motion to adopt that.
May I ask for a motion to adopt option B in your packet that reads what I just stated? I'm looking for a motion, gentlemen, to reject the request to rezone based on that statement of consistency and reasonableness that I just said is the reason why we rejected it. Do I hear a motion?
So first is the motion to say you approve that, what I just said, and what you said back again, and Andrew will type up for you this week, that as chairman, that it is not consistent and is not reasonable and non public interest for the following reasons that you've already put in the record, and Andrew will prepare that for you. Does someone want to make a motion to adopt that reasonable statement?
I'm looking for a motion to adopt the statement that's just been read by me and advised by or explained by council. Looking for a motion, gentlemen, for this board statement on regarding consistency and reasonableness with this recommendation.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
That motion would be to reject the rezoning request based on the A4. What would this motion be, Mr. Johnson?
That's what has been stated by our attorney, Howard Jones, and also our chairman, Van Tucker.
Yes.
All right.
Just to adopt the statement.
We have a motion to adopt the statement. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Johnson and a second by Commissioner Goins. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The record show none opposed. It is unanimous.
Next would be a motion to deny. Next motion would be to deny the petition to rezone this property before the board tonight.
All right, I'll make that motion that we deny the request of the petition for this property to be rezoned. Do I hear a second? Second, Commissioner Goins. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Time period.
Okay,
If I could, please, just to distinguish, this board is not the Surry County Inspections Department. And the time period that the board needs to be transparent about community does not inhibit Keith or the inspections department permits stop work orders or proceeding any way that Raleigh says they need to proceed. The time period is, we now have a rezoning request denied. They're not allowed to continue this use zoning wise. So the board needs to consider and be transparent with the community. How long should Red Star have?
5-star.
Sorry, 5-star. Apologies. 5-star have to vacate the use from this premises. So that's the discussion you need to have, and then.
Yes, and Ed, we'll have that discussion and we'll get a consensus. Will that require formal action to be voted on?
Yes.
Okay.
You will need to, I mean, I figure you will need to discuss among yourselves what is reasonable. I mean, I don't know the scope of this operation. It appears to be a pretty big plant, but I don't know what their inventory is. I don't know what's in there. I don't know where they're going to take it, but I would recommend that the board use the reasonableness standard to have them evacuate. I mean, I mean, I don't know, it's 30, 60, 90 days. I don't know what's reasonable. And I know that the board wants to be reasonable, but they also need to understand that these guys have been operating illegally for over a year and with impunity. And so that might temper the time frame. I don't know.
All right. Well, we're going to get into that discussion, and gentlemen, we have taken action to deny the rezoning request. This board, I want to not speak for you, but I'll just say my opinion on it. You know, the task before this board tonight was a tall one. We made a decision. It's not one that's pleasing to everybody. It's not one we thought would be pleasing to everybody. It's not one we'd made up our minds about before we got here. It's one that we have decided. There's going to be some people that's happier than others, but the board has taken that on. But we've made that hard decision, and now we want to make a merciful decision, and that is, since we have voted to deny or reject the rezoning request, we want to talk about how much mercy, if for lack of a better word, can we give to this establishment that seems to be caught up in the middle, that has a business that's going on, that has been basically told you cannot go on here legally any longer because you haven't been legal to start with. And so, gentlemen, I'm going to take that up. What kind of time frame do you guys have in mind? Commissioner Goins.
45 days.
Commissioner Marion.
Cease operation, cease manufacturing, and 45 days to vacate.
Commissioner Johnson.
Cease manufacturing 30 days.
Commissioner Harris.
Cease manufacture and 30 days.
Cease manufacture immediately and gone in 30 days.
I concur with
All
Commissioner
right.
Johnson.
Looks like we got a big split right there. So,
I mean, I'm not going to fall out with anybody over it. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not set in stone.
you know, I don't have much latitude here, but I do have a split.
You're the swing vote.
Swing vote. I say we cease operations and we give them, the two gentlemen's consensus was 45 days to vacate. I'm looking for a motion to do that.
I'll make a motion.
Motion for Commissioner Goins to cease operations and vacate within 45 days. Second, Commissioner Marion. Any discussion?
Counselor, does the fact that we've ordered cease operations,
Clarification, you're voting.
Zoning only.
Yeah, you're voting on the policy of the board. The Director of Development Services, who I represent, is sitting right there, Director Needham. Tomorrow morning, he will be writing a letter, a notice of violation to 5-star and to the property owner that you are in violation. And we normally say you have a step that you can take to correct this, which is one would be rezoning. can't say that. That option's gone. So it will be, you're in violation. You need to cease operations and,
Upon receipt of this communication.
yes, so I'm trying to understand, are you saying they need to cease,
Well,
Making manufacturing.
they need to stop manufacturing tomorrow? And then they have
Well-
45, or they need to stop and,
Cease manufacturing immediately and 45 days to vacate.
Yes.
Yeah,
my understanding.
and it's gonna depend on when the letter gets there, you know?
And depend on, and does this, in your opinion, does this minimize any sort of minimize the legal exposure to Surry County?
I see no legal exposure to Surry County.
What we've done, we've just addressed a zoning issue only. This is not in regards to inspection.
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah,
Jones, I'll ask you to help clarify that.
Eddie, these guys are in violation. They've been in violation for a year.
I understand all that. I just,
they don't have to even mention.
But
it.
I mean, I don't see how they would have a,
What they've done.
yeah, I don't see how
Go
they
ahead,
have
Ed. Go ahead.
any,
We're sorry. Go ahead, Ed.
no, I just don't see that they have any leg to stand on as far as county liability. I mean, we've been patient with them. We've worked with them, and they have neglected to follow our guidance, and you know, that's their problem.
so, let me just clarify something.
Yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Jones.
This has nothing to do with Keith Kiger and inspections and stop work, or stop work.
Okay.
Or cutting the power. He's gonna do what he's gonna do. What I want to know is, just to be transparent with the community, we send a letter out and we'll probably hand deliver this one, okay? As opposed to just mailing it, and we're probably gonna post it on the building. Now, we get a phone call back. How long do we have to stop this? Now, we usually, because it's the first they've heard of it, and because they also have an option to go in and try an alternative, either get a special use permit or do a rezoning that would cure it. That's gone now. They've gone that route. So I just want to be transparent. The board's preference, this is a motion on what preference for Mr. Needham is in terms of how much time to give in that notice of violation. Now, he's ultimately going to do what he wants to do. He's the director. But you need to communicate to him what your preference is, as far as, do they stop now? Okay, tomorrow? And do they then have 45 days to leave? And if that is your preference, communicate that publicly, because we've got both sides of the issue, so we need to have our expectations set.
Howard, does that include removing the buildings or in setback violation?
No. No, the buildings are a whole nother issue. Now, if you want to address that, okay, Ed, I mean, that's
That's not a good, that's not a good thing to address tonight.
no, I don't think it is, because they can still go back and ask for variance for these buildings. Not for this use, okay? But how far do we have to move these buildings back from these setbacks? That's not before this board tonight.
No,
So, again-
and I think, you know, you've made a good distinction between planning and inspections. And inspections can do whatever it wants to do, but I would encourage them to be consistent with the board action so that we don't turn the power off tomorrow. We allow them, if it's 45 days, if it's 30 days, you know, to get out. I mean, they can't remove their materials in the dark. And there are no windows in that building.
And that's not safe either.
Yeah, but I think this board has entertained a motion and passed it to say we want work to stop tomorrow or on receipt of this letter.
Yeah,
we-
manufacturing will stop. Yeah, yeah. but
Manufacturing will stop.
The question is, you know, when do they get their crap out?
I think this board has said
They can still continue to load what they've.
They
got
can load trucks
manufactured.
and be in the process of complying for 45 days.
Okay, that's good.
And so Marty, are you, the communication is good here. We have no misunderstandings.
So they liquidate their materials.
Okay,
Is that voted on?
No, we need to vote.
okay, we need to vote. Discussion's over. Looking for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Unanimous decision to end manufacturing immediately and to leave the premises on or before 45 days.
This
Yeah.
use of the premise.
Yes, for this use. Yes. All right.
Howard, Marty, you have another item.
Okay.
I have a question still concerning this, what we've done tonight.
Well, I already give a little latitude.
Well, nothing about what we've already done.
Yeah, yeah.
The lawyer mentioned at the very beginning some ifs. You got a new map over there. Then you said it takes 12 months, for them to bring it back forward again. You said we could have some latitude if we wanted to. These are all ifs, but I'd like to know, the petitioners had the opportunity to withdraw, they didn't. So the action's been taken now.
Correct.
So what's in store for the future?
Okay.
Anything,
For the,
is my question.
for the landowner.
For if they got a new plat, and they've even said a few residents, a few neighbors, like that, it's better or whatever. So what goes on now if the petitioners, what do they get to do with that new plat? Is my question.
Well, I mean, first of all, there's a practical problem that the use has to stop tomorrow. And
Right.
This tenant is gonna need to find another place to do business in short order.
Right.
And that can't, so going through the process of having, of applying to this board to give an exception for 1 year, right? And then going back in front of the planning board with a public hearing, and then coming back in front of this board with a public hearing, the business has got to be someplace else before then. So that's not going to really, in my opinion, I mean, they're free to do what they want, but in my opinion, I don't see the utility of that for a 5-star. However, the owner still has a piece of property. Okay? And it is zoned CB and RA. So putting aside the setback issues on the property and the permit problems with Keith, putting aside that, the owner is allowed to engage in uses and rent out to people that want to engage in uses that are allowed in CB on the portions of the property that are zoned community business, or allowed in RA on portions of the property that are zoned RA. That's number one. Number two, Commissioner, the applicant, if the applicant finds another tenant who wants to do something that is not allowed in CB, okay, or that portion of the RA, then the applicant has 2 avenues. One is to wait a year and come in for another rezoning. Okay? Or they may file a written request. I believe that's usually through sent to the county manager to be put on an agenda. Okay, and it would just say, we're requesting that you allow us to ask for a rezoning quicker than 1 year. Okay? Under this section of the code, it would be put on the agenda, and this board would then vote whether or not to allow them to ask for rezoning in less than 1 year. If they have any questions, they can ask on how to do that and what the petition would need to say and what the best way to position themselves to do that, because we tell all citizens when they say, what's the process? How do I go about doing this? What does this mean? We're free, and Marty's free to answer questions, and if not, then Marty will consult Ed and I. If they do that, and this board then holds a meeting, and we would, we've got email addresses, we're gonna send out emails and to everyone that's asked, then they're gonna get triggered by that email process. They're gonna know that Red Oak's coming back, so it's transparent. You know, and you'll know that there's gonna be a request with 5 county commissioners to consider whether or not to allow this quicker or whether or not they have to wait 1 year. And you'd hold a hearing.
And my recommendation would be if they do make an application for an exception to the 1-year rule, that the Board of Commissioners refer it back to the planning department or the planning board to determine whether the proposal is credible and whether the Board of Commissioners should support it.
My question was, I just want the community and others to understand
Yes.
that what could be the petitioner, the owners of the land. I got 30 acres sitting over there, and I wouldn't mind doing something with it. I own 30 acres. I feel like the landowner has a right to do something with their land.
It's currently zoned CB.
They own the land.
It's
And,
correct.
so, but anyway, they gotta decide if it changes zoning or not change, go through all the proper sites. But I just wanted the community to know that, you know, there's still land there that the landowners will probably love to utilize somehow or another. But as of tonight, the current business is done with, and rezoning has been denied. So I just want to make sure they all understand a little bit about what could happen in the future.
Yes, and I think that if anyone has not put their email up, what we normally do, now, if there's a request to accelerate this 1-year period, that's not a zoning request. That's not an amendment. So we're not gonna advertise that. That's just gonna be a hearing. But we're gonna send out emails to everyone who's asked to know about that. If there's another, and so this is an extra step of transparency. So put your name on that list if you want to be kept in the loop.
Yep.
But understand, as Commissioner Johnson said, these people have a legal right to use their property as it is currently zoned. And they can proceed with all uses that are permitted under the code.
All right. Thank you very much. I believe that concludes our business concerning the Red Oak Development LLC request tonight. And I am moving on to you, Director Marty Needham from Developmental Services on the Scenic Byway Standards Committee.
Good evening again. As you all know, we passed a scenic byway overlay. Okay.
Let's take a 1-minute standing pause. Yeah. Sure.
I'm so sorry. Left my notes.
Long one. Appreciate you folks' input.
We appreciate y'all and y'all's hard
Thank
work
y'all.
Yes,
and your wisdom.
thank you.
And I apologize for wanting to look a man in the eye when he tells a lie on me. Put that on the record.
We have people complain they can't hear it on YouTube.
Okay.
Can't hear it on YouTube.
Well, it's hard.
Sorry.
Well, I'm just saying, if there is a reason, nobody's seen that, so I'm just saying, if it's there.
All right. Thank you, thank you. Okay, we had a standing momentary break. Mr. Needham, when you get an opportunity, we'll proceed back. Yes, ma'am, go ahead and feel free to sign the email list. Put that on the table, at the end of the other table there, Marty, not at the podium. People can come up. Anybody wants to sign up for email, you feel free to come on up and sign. That has not done so. Go ahead, Mr. Needham.
Okay. As you know, last April, we passed a new overlay district for the Startown Scenic Byway. And there was a panel of citizens created to create some extra rules, so to speak, for that overlay district. And you have before you a draft proposal of those extra rules. And we're just asking for your guys' stamp of approval, omission of something, addition of something, if you so see fit. And
All right. Discussion.
Marty and the members of the committee worked on hard on this time. They've reached, they think they've done what you want, but they don't know. Did they go too far? Did they not go too far enough? Just some informal feedback. What do you think?
Well, I'll just give a little feedback, and I'll get you, I don't see anything wrong with the, height of the building, 40 feet. I think that's their own target. These 32 square foot, monumental style signs, I don't see any issue with that. I really don't have any issue, the lumens on the lights. Mr. Harris, I'm surprised you're not all over this, especially the sign part, but, what I do raise a question about is, just for me, it appears that the, increased minimum yard setbacks for the, additional standards for special use permits, 2.5 times the minimum setbacks that are already required. I wonder if we couldn't say 1.5 times or 2 times, and you gentlemen weigh in on anything you see here. That's my feedback. Any others? Mr. Johnson, you got any feedback?
Well, I see what you're saying there. I totally like that they've got together and come this far. I don't have any qualms of anything that y'all discussed and put on paper here.
Okay.
Go along with it like it is, but
All right.
if you have a concern, Mr. Chairman, about that, 2.5 times, I would go, just
What is?
on it a little bit
setback?
more.
What is the setback for, special use?
The feet, Marty, do you know?
Increase
what's-
minimum yard setback.
I think it's 600 from the center of the road. It's where the overlay district lies in each direction.
I should have said,
Yeah.
we're talking about setbacks here. We can't change that.
No, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about how far the building needs to be from the highway
That's
on
gonna-
that 600 feet.
The center of the highway, each way, 600
Yeah.
feet is what we talked about.
Yeah, I'm just gonna give feedback. 2.5 times might be a little far. 2 times might be all right with me. That's just my feedback.
Well, it's going to depend on how it's zoned, because it's different for different zoning districts. There are some CB, I have to look in the code book to 40 feet in the front, normally 12 feet on the sides for RA and 20 feet in the back, 25.
About saying, okay, it's that times 2.5. So instead of being 40 feet in the front, if that's what wasn't code, it would be 100. So the question is that too much?
Well, my suggestion was maybe 2 times. There's some difference, but maybe twice as much is a bunch more. Twice as much is twice as much. So that was just my feedback. Commissioner Goins? Either way. Mr. Mayor, you guys good?
What?
With any of this, all of this, none of this?
Well, yeah, I mean, no, I do have some comments here.
All right, well, just come forward with
Um,
it.
It says no neon lighting. I like that.
Yeah, I figured.
No blinking lights. I like that. Now, we have had, my rub is digital signage. And a lot of fire departments have put up, in my opinion, what is the most hideous looking signs I've ever seen in my life. And they blink all kinds of things. And, I mean, some people might think it's good, but in a rural community like mine, you got a neon light going off all night long. It says drive safely, that just don't sit well with me. So what about digital? I don't think any digital flashing all night signage ought to be on this thing here. I mean,
Let's just say no electronic signs on these scenic byways.
well, that would tickle me to death.
Well, that's that's 2 feedback per persons. Anybody else want to weigh in on that? On the scenic byways we're talking about?
And is there it, so 32 square feet is basically a,
8x4.
yeah, 4x8. Thank you, Larry. Sorry, I went to Bannertown to elementary school. I didn't do too good there. But, but, so a 4x8, that's about as big as I'd want it. I mean, in a scenic byway, and I think it certainly wouldn't be any more, than 8 feet tall, but,
If you could, feel like they might consider eliminating all electronic signage, you could live with 2 feet.
yeah, I'll live with the rest of it if we can get rid of electronic signs.
All right, I can, that's my feedback as well. You guys good with that? No,
Well, what we're talking about is from Bannertown to the Stokes County line, Westfield, is that correct? Yeah, I concur.
I guess the next step, Howard, we'll redraft this, to come as a text amendment before the board.
I think, I mean, if we're
Wait a minute, we have some more, don't we? It's stated in.
yep, I think that's good. All right, thank you, Marty. Yes, sir, you may be excused. Thank you, Howard. Can we go with you?
Wait a minute, I think we need to vote on that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jones. You are excused.
Will we be in any legal jeopardy with you leaving?
Heads on.
Ed, you still with us?
Yes, sir.
I believe Ed's checked out.
No, I'm here.
Okay, we're good. You excuse, Mr. Jones. Okay, I believe, Nick Brown, Communications Director. Director Brown, come on up. Thank you, sir. Good evening, Nick.
So I applied for a grant from the 911 board for portable radios. And we were lucky to receive those. And they have issued us a agreement that would have to be signed by the county if we were to take the radios. The grant amount is for $49,985.34.
Can you, condense that agreement? Because it's rather lengthy.
Yep, so we're approved for 6 positions in the county. They're going to allow us to have 1 handheld radio in case our primary radios go down, 1 at each station. They'll allow us to have 2 batteries for those radios. 1 will stay with it, of course, the other one would go to Stokes County to Danbury to the backup center. That would give us 2 chargers as well, 1 for Stokes, 1 for us. And then they would pay for the programming cost per radio, the encryption and all that, and the maintenance for the first 12 months of it. Now, the agreement would be that we would have to keep these radios on site, and they can only be used by our department. Can't be used by EMS, the sheriff's office, or anybody, but communications people for that time period of 36 months. After that 1 year, any kind of maintenance that those radios would need, the county would have to pay for out of general fund. So, and they would be, they do inspections from time to time from the board we just done one, I think it was in August. And they come by and they just check our equipment and stuff and make sure that we're doing everything to statute. And just make sure those radios would have to be there. If not, they would penalize us and county would have to pay for them.
Okay, Chris, what kind of action needs to be taken for us to receive this $49,985 grant?
Motion to receive the grant.
Okay, yeah, you hear us, Ed? Do we need a motion to receive this grant? Yeah. Yes. Okay, I'm looking for a motion to receive this grant for $49,985 to, communications.
Make that motion.
Okay, have a motion for Commissioner Goins. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second for Commissioner Marion. Any discussion?
Well, one thing I think as I read it, that, we're take care of them ourselves. I mean, we getting them and we getting them for the 49,000 something, but once they're ours,
Yes.
if there's a problem with them or maintenance, it's on us. Is that correct?
After the first
Yeah.
year.
Yes, sir. Mhm.
After the first year, okay. Well, I'm fine, sir. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion.
Let's-
Yes, go right ahead.
Are we still in discussion, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, we are. Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. I want to say that I'd like the non-discrimination clause in this, contract. I think it's very appropriate. I think it's a good contract. I also like that it, specifically in section, page 15, number 21, section J, under illegal aliens, it says no cost incurred as a result of work performed by illegal aliens shall be reimbursement by grant funds, and requires to be, E-Verify requirement. I think it's a very good contract and I commend you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor to receive the grant of $49,985, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Okay, Penny Harrison, our tax administrator, please come on up. Hello, Penelope.
Hello, I have one item tonight, and I had an assignment last meeting to get some information on the preferred bidder for the foreclosure program, and I have included it in your packet. And the preferred bidder program is something that the Kenya Law Firm offers for Surry County, and they, excuse me, they offer this to help Surry County for the properties that they're in danger of being sold back to the county. And if someone is interested in that piece of property and are willing to propose a bid, and if it covers all costs of the foreclosure fees and things like that, then they will take the fee and put it in the trust fund, and then they will sign a contract. And then after the foreclosure goes through the process, then the bid will start out for the amount of the preferred bidder amount. And then if there isn't any bids that day, then when it goes through the upset bid period, it will still remain in the preferred bidder amount. And after the 10 days, if no one upsets the bid, then it will, the preferred bidder will win the piece of property. But it still can be upset bid during that 10 days.
Mr. Johnson, did that satisfy your
Yes,
question?
thank you. I didn't hear the word preferred bidder before.
Yes, sir.
I read what you found out, and so this gentleman he paid his money up, so he's a preferred bidder, and so we've already got a bid on that property.
Yes,
That's what
sir.
it boils down to.
Is he happy?
I don't know, he ain't heard from him in a long time.
Okay.
He ain't got his money back, so I guess he's pretty happy.
Okay.
Yeah,
But, whenever the time comes, we've already got one bid on the property.
yes, sir. And if for some reason that he does not win the bid, he will receive his money back.
So you're requesting that this board approve the opening preferred bid and permission to proceed to finalize the foreclosure tonight?
Yes, we're going to have a sale on March the 21st. And if this board approves this sale, then I'm going to ask the Kenya Law Firm to add this to the sale for March 21st.
Yeah.
March 21st at courthouse?
Yeah, the Judicial Center. Yes, sir.
That's what judicial, that's right.
All right, gentlemen, looking for a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the opening preferred bid and permission for Penny to proceed to finalize foreclosure.
Okay, you have a motion. I'm looking for a second to approve the opening preferred bid. Do I hear a second?
Can we do that tonight? We
Yeah.
can? Okay, yeah, I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Marion and a second from Commissioner Johnson. Any discussion?
When you go out, do you do that in the lobby or on the steps outside?
In the lobby.
In the lobby? And who does that in your office?
I go out, well, I go to the Judicial Center and also another employee that helps me with the foreclosures.
But Kenya doesn't send anybody out here from Asheville.
Yes,
Oh, they do send someone out
2
here.
people.
2 people.
Yes,
On a simple little foreclosure like this,
yes,
they'll send 2 people from Asheville out here?
yes.
Be the only one though, will it?
No, we'll have 4 that day.
Or, okay, so it's kind of beneficial to the county to bunch up a lot of these together, I'm assuming?
Well, they still charge the same, each foreclosure is still considered
Oh,
individually.
So it's, okay, it's a set price.
Yes,
Okay, all right, thanks. I was just curious to how that worked.
yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? There being none, all in favor of the motion to approve the opening preferred bid, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Penny. All right, moving right along, Richard Young, Eric Southern, with Eric with the EMS and, Emergency Services Director, and Richard Young with the Rescue Squad Association. Thank you, gentlemen.
Commissioners, thank you for letting us be up here and speak tonight. We're presenting the amended contract with the Surry County EMS. Do you guys have a copy of this in your budget packet? Okay. We are amending, section 3, subsection D, where it states Surry County EMS shall be responsible for acquiring said ambulance should the squads not be available to bring the ambulance to the EMS stations. And we are also amending subsection H to where it goes down to where it says county shall reimburse the squad at a rate of $5 per mile from the time Surry County EMS picks up the borrowed vehicle through the time it is returned. The old, forgive me, I do not have a copy of the old contract as it stands right now, but the subsection D just stated in the existing contract that when using the rescue squad vehicle personnel, EMS shall utilize vehicle personnel or equipment primarily for non-emergency convalescent transports. We just changed that to say that they are responsible for coming and picking up the apparatus that they need to use. And then for the subsection H, the current contract stands as we are reimbursed at a rate of $2 per mile. We are just upping that to $5 per mile just due to inflation and wear and tear on our vehicles. Any questions?
Gentlemen, any questions?
How often, Eric, do we run out of ambulances and need use of rescue squad?
Honestly, we run out of ambulances about once a week, but we make do. Squads will go on standby for us, and us actually using the ambulances. Last year, we used them a total of 4 times.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions?
I'm good.
Okay, I guess we need a motion to approve the amendment to this contract. So gentlemen, I am going to entertain a motion to approve the amendment requested to the contract with Surry County Association of Rescue Squads. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Harris. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Marion. Any discussion?
Without me in detail, how long is this contract good for?
The contract is good for 2 years and then automatically renews. Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
at each of your seats, there's a memo from North State Design Group. Mr. Chilton is here. He requested that the board consider amending the agenda to add this item. It addresses a number of change orders for the health department renovation project.
I don't see that.
Here.
here, man. I guess I did.
Yeah. So,
If you want to take this up, you'll have to vote.
amend the agenda.
Yeah, consider a vote to amend the agenda.
Yeah, gentlemen, I'm looking to entertain a motion to amend the agenda to allow, Tony Chilton with North State to come before the board with concern tonight. Looking for a motion. To amend.
So moved.
Motion from Commissioner Harris, second.
Second.
Second, Bill Goins. Any discussion? None. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Come on up, Mr. Chilton. Hey, Tony.
Hello there. Tony Chilton, 336-416-5727. Thank you for seeing me on short notice. Thank you, Sandy. And Chris. We got 6 items. 3 items are straightforward, and I felt like at this time, so we can keep progress on the job, that we would go ahead and present. There are 3 that we want additional investigation before we present. We're looking for additional information, additional pricing, and one in particular that was listed as an add alternate on the mechanical. It's not a question of the cost. It's a question of where the cost should reside. It's part of the existing building infrastructure that was determined that it was not in operation when the renovation demolition took place, and it was listed as an add alternate, so it would have to be added. That is an item that's tabled for later as we find more information. That will not hold up the construction process that's going on. The 3 items that I have, item number 17 is casework revisions, taking some of the casework out, putting casework in, and adding doors and shelves in places, and especially doing a walkthrough and you see your space and a better utilization of that space. That's 2781. Item number 20 is a painting upgrade, which is similar to what you see at the back of the space where you do the white trim around all the doors. There's approximately 78 doors at right around $42 a piece, which adds up to $3,284. Part of the building was the majority of the building was monochrome painted, and a portion of it was this type. A misunderstanding in the construction documents and the approvals that it should have been this way instead of the monochrome. In either case, the cost would have been the same, whether it was reflected in the original bid or occurred now. So it's looked at as a betterment to the project. And then the final item is the work necessary to do an ice maker install. Ice maker was picked up in the beginning prior to the bid to be put in. It was shown and illustrated in the project, but we did not have adequately shown the plumbing, mechanical, and electrical hookup for that. So there's an additional cost to put that in. I am responsible for $400 of that, which is putting the project in reverse to take sheetrock off the wall and repaint once that installation is done. The install itself is a betterment, but the taking the sheetrock off and the repaint belongs on me because our plumbing, mechanical, and electrical engineers did not have that properly reflected on the plans at the time of bid. So that's 3 items. That's an add of $8,210, which brings the grand total to $108,240.46, and then I'll be reimbursing the county $400 of that.
Okay, so you're talking about a request for item number 17, item number 20, item number 21 for a total cost of $8,210.50 tonight.
That is correct.
Okay, gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
I'm fine with it, Mr. Chairman.
You're representing the Health Board. This is a Surry County Health and Nutrition renovation. You're good with it,
Fine with it.
Mr. Johnson? All right, I'm looking for a motion. Are you making that into a motion, Mr. Johnson?
Be glad to, sir.
All right, motion from Commissioner Larry Johnson to entertain approving item 17, item 20, item 21 for $8,210.50. Your second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Harris. Any discussion?
Yes, just one question. Are we close to, where are we at in the contingency on this project?
The general contingency was at 100,000. There's a couple of line items that are signage, which was an allowance for 6,000 that, as it stands right now, would most likely go over that. There's an allowance for toilet partitions, which we do not have an estimate for at this time. And there is one more singular allowance. There's draperies and coverings that we don't have an estimate for that either. That's to determine whether we can find something within its range that we put in as an allowance.
Thank you.
And the item that I've held, one of the items out of the three that I've held is for the smoke detection in the ductwork. And that was a add alternate item that was listed during the bid, but has not been selected because it wasn't determined initially that it was not functioning. But then as the project progressed, it was determined that it wasn't compatible and functioning. So that add alternate would have to be exercised.
Okay, gentlemen, any more questions, any more concerns, any more discussion concerning the motion and the second to approve the 8210 request? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, Chris, anything else?
That's all besides, general
Mr.
county
Comment.
business. We do have a request for closed session for personnel.
All right, before we do that, we'll take a few commissioner comments right quick. I know it's been a long meeting. Start with you on this end this time. Mr. Johnson, you have any comments?
I think I've said enough tonight, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Harris?
I think I've said too much.
Okay. I have said a plenty myself. Thank everybody for coming. We appreciate you long stayers for the long suffering. Thank you for being here. Commissioner Goins.
I'm good. One item, be quick. It's a thank you letter from Kenneth Williams, volunteer. He said, I'd like to thank you and the Board of Surry County Commissioners for allowing the Surry County Parks and Recreation Department to host the YHEST scrimmage event Saturday, February 10th, 24. The facilities were in great shape and the staff did a wonderful job preparing for the event. Mr. Daniel White is a great ambassador for our community. Not affiliated with any of the shooting teams attending the event on February. I am a volunteer instructor for the North Carolina Wildlife Commission. Work this event as a volunteer only. It was an honor to be able to serve as a volunteer. Thank you. I would also like to thank you for allowing us to open this event with a prayer. Sincerely, Kenneth Williams. That was about 7 schools participated in a practice shooting event at Fisher River Park, February 10th, and I believe we had a good time and good turnout. A lot of folks, a lot of young'uns out there shooting and doing archery.
Okay.
Very educational also. They had to do homework.
Hookwork.
Yes. I seen it on Surry on the Go. I enjoyed it. We'll put a plug in for Surry on the
All
Go.
right. Thank you, commissioners. Anything else? Nothing. Motion to go to close. Mr. Bill Goins, looking for a second.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Johnson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are in close. We are now back in session. Thank you for hanging around there, Chet. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Motion